Are you ready?
This is a discussion podcast about wrestling. This episode was recorded December 18th, 2017.
Hello everyone and welcome to Flip the Mic Podcast, a wrestling podcast with the Jonin Monkey and MVL, baby! That's how you do it, you just say your own name. That's how you do it. Tonight, our topics are the Riot Squad and Absolution. We have our War Games and Survivor Series recap. We talk about the Mixed Tag Challenge coming up. And we have our Clash of Champions predictions that, like our Survivor Series and War Games predictions, are bound to be wrong.
Yeah, you'd think we'd learn from this, but we're kind of like WWE Creative. We forget everything that happened after a couple of months and just keep repeating certain statements.
Or in the case of wrestlers like R-Truth, we just get injured and our programs get dropped completely. So that is actually what happened with Goldust and R-Truth. Shame, because I wanted to see Goldust as a manager. But first up, we have a topic that I was going to talk about, but I'm going to cover it in my show-stopping promo section, and that is Woken, Not Broken, very clear distinction there, Matt Hardy. And I'm going to give to you my interpretation of his first Woken promo against Bray Wyatt. I'm just going to read Matt Hardy's parts. Yes, for millennia my soul has wandered through space and time, but not all souls who wander are lost. I am well versed in all facets of the multiverse. I have studied at the Library of Alexandria, battled alongside Genghis Khan, danced with Cleopatra, and held symposiums with Plato, and meditated atop the Great Pyramids of Giza. Due to my condition, I have laid dormant inside this vessel of Matthew Hardy, but now, thanks to the consumer of terrestrial entities, I have been awoken! Bray Wyatt, you have left me with no choice. I sentence you to deletion! And the rest of that is manic laughter between Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. Really cool, really interesting that this has actually happened.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, after this promo came out, Anthem did a tweet saying that they'd noticed a very similar character to their broken Matt Hardy has been unveiled in WWE, and they're allowing wrestlers to use their Impact Wrestling personalities outside. I think what probably is happening there is that they are just not going to bother fighting this. There's just no point. And because of how bad the publicity was for Anthem and Impact Wrestling because of the whole Matt Hardy thing, they probably just want to, save grace at this point and look good. Mm-hmm. And they had another promo the next week on Raw, another, back and forth between Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy. That one was a little more awkward because of the graphics. They did a kind of a broken graphic where they had some red glass shatter and it woken, but having that Bray Wyatt graphics and then the Woken graphics every single time they went back and forth, instead of the kind of interference, which was just a second that they had in the first promo, made it a bit awkward to watch. It was a bit kind of drawn out.
Yeah, it was cool the first time they did it, but I think that should only have been used as an entrance. The fact that they kept doing it every time they jumped cut, like you said, it just killed the pacing of it.
Yeah, the problem that a lot of fans are seeing is that it's quite overproduced, and it's not as free as it was when Matt Hardy was doing it at Impact Wrestling. Like, now would be a good time for Matt Hardy to do some sort of outside of the environment kind of stuff, as they head towards what I can only imagine is going to be a House of Horrors 2 match. What they've had before is they had a sort of Wyatt compound match, again, sort of a copy of Final Deletion with the New Day. That was pretty bad, and so was House of Horrors for that matter, Bray Wyatt's match against Randy Orton, even though the build-up to that was really cool, with Randy Orton burning down Sister Abigail's house and then putting what he referred to as a crucifix, a destroyer of demons or something, which is really funny if Randy Orton believes that, or if it's just Randy Orton believing that Bray Wyatt believes that, and that would hurt him.
Yeah, that feud got a bit confusing towards the end, unfortunately.
It did, but it was still really cool, despite the fact that they didn't really have the House of Horror match living up to my expectations. It wasn't as wacky as Final Deletion can be, but what was really cool is Matt Hardy did mention that in his past lives he had held hands with Sister Abigail, and that he knew her before she now resides inside of Bray Wyatt, which is really interesting that they have a bit of Sister Abigail's story being played out in Matt Hardy's Woken character.
I was just about to say, I think it is actually perfect that Bray Wyatt, the cultist who has had a link to the spiritual side, is the one who brings out the Woken character, and I actually do like that. I actually wouldn't mind if they became sort of the protagonist-antagonist relationship if it went on for a little bit of a longer feud rather than a one-and-done thing. Like, even Bray Wyatt, I mean, I know he's prone to being a little bit overdramatic, which is quite possibly the biggest understatement of the year, but one of the things he said during the first promo is that I feel alive again, my heart is pumping, so yeah, I don't know, maybe that's a sign that he's finally found an opponent he's excited to go up against.
Well, I'm excited to see what they do, because finally Bray Wyatt will be able to do something quite interesting instead of this kind of spot he's in right now where he wants to do creative things, but I feel like he's being held back a little bit. That said, people are afraid they won't fully pull the trigger on Woken Matt Hardy or Bray Wyatt's rivalry. And where's it going to end up? Is it going to be like a pre-show thing where it just doesn't go anywhere? Because they're both mid-carders at this point. Even though Matt Hardy's been a champion before, he's never really gotten to that top tier in WWE. And then you have Bray Wyatt, who has been champion, but they're not doing anything with him right now. And then recently, who's gotten over against Bray Wyatt? Like, he's just been dragging people down when they've come to rivalries with him, which is a shame because he's a talented performer. He's definitely very enticing on the microphone, but the problem is it's just not really gotten to where it needs to go with him. I feel like he needs another Wyatt family, and then Matt Hardy needs a Broken Alliance, or a Woken Alliance, sorry. Different characters. Woken is completely different to Broken. They need that going on, where they can be playing against each other in a grander scale. I believe Matt Hardy said he wanted to have Woken Warriors join his cause, several times on Twitter at least, as far as I know. So it's really cool. They developed Matt Hardy's character a bit fast for my liking. He had one sort of outburst when he fought Bray Wyatt, and he sort of said, delete, 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 but the crowd didn't react to it at the time. I think because everyone lost faith in him becoming Broken Matt. They teased it quite a lot over the past year that he's been with WWE, to a point where he said, I am broken, and Jeff Hardy said we should fade away and classify ourselves as obsolete. That was just teasing the audience, but now they're going with it. It's really cool.
I mean, from what I've heard, I mean, this is just from cheat sheet videos I've seen, so I don't know how accurate this is, but from what I've heard, apparently Vince McMahon, he likes the gimmick enough that he's willing to give Matt Hardy creative control, but whether or not that transitions to big spot at the pay-per-views, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
You're right, though. I've also read that. It comes to mind that he has given him creative control because the character is already established, and he sees money in it.
Good point.
So that's really interesting. And with that, shall we move on to our first topic? And first I want to say, hopefully it doesn't sound like I'm wandering around the arena, because I'm using a headset now instead of my inbuilt microphone array. And if you guys watch our Dungeons & Dragons live streams or pre-recorded videos that will be showing up on Jonin's channel real soon, live streams are on MVL Gaming, but the Company of Might and Valor is going to be showing up on the Jonin Monkey's channel.
Indeed.
You'll know that my middle name is practically Technical Difficulties. So hopefully I sound a bit better. I mean, I can't change my actual voice, but hopefully I don't sound like I'm running away and coming back to the camera too much, because I move my head too much from where my microphone is. I have a headset, so hopefully that's a bit better.
Okay, there's been a recent shake-up in the women's divisions of both Raw and SmackDown, which happened pretty much straight away after Survivor Series. We had two teams come on the same time. One on Raw that called Absolution, that was led by a returning superstar, Paige, who I believe she initially left because of violation of the wellness policy, or did I get that mixed up?
Yes, they said on WWE television that she left due to an injury, which is correct. She did have an injury and that was taken care of, but they kind of glossed over the fact that she did make a second wellness policy violation. And so she had to leave for quite a while, which is just after she came back for a little bit, but then had another violation and had to leave again. Yeah, so it wasn't looking good for Paige. she's a young talent. She's got plenty of time to work this off, and she's in a big spot now, so it looks good for her again. Thing I should probably mention is she was in a relationship with Alberto Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio also left WWE, but he has remained away from WWE, and they're not together now mainly because of travel, but there was a big social media thing about possibly an abusive relationship between the two of them. Probably for the best that they're not together anymore, because you don't want that sort of thing dragging down your career. And like they've said, they can't keep that kind of relationship going on with the distance they travel. They're both doing shows all over the place. They'll never get to see each other.
But yes, she's back, and she's now brought teammates in order to form Absolution. Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose. Now, I know Sonya Deville had like a MMA background when she first arrived on NXT. I don't know much about Mandy Rose, though.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So Sonya Deville, a lot of people are saying she's not ready. I think she's a great in-ring performer, and when we go over to talk about NXT War Games, we'll be talking about how important the match between Sonya Deville and Ruby Riott was for the NXT Women's Division. Not, because they're both in WWE now, but nevertheless, it is really cool that Sonya Deville has made the jump to the main roster. I think it's good for her with the talent coming in. I don't think she's a bad wrestler. We've had really bad wrestlers in the past. Eva Marie! Did I say that? We've had really bad wrestlers, and I'm not comparing Sonya Deville to Eva Marie. I'm just saying Sonya Deville can wrestle, and she'll get better as time goes on. She now has that time on the main roster where they wrestle much more than they did on NXT. She'll home it up. And then you have a Mandy Rose, and the reason probably no one knows about Mandy Rose is they've been keeping her off NXT. She was in Total Divas, and she was doing very well with that. She's been in live events, but not televised live events, and they felt that they wanted to keep her off NXT. I think she was on maybe 1 or 2 shows on NXT. I do believe I have seen her on NXT, maybe once. Don't remember how many times, but she was on NXT, but not a lot. They took her straight up to the main roster because she looks like a star. Having said that, the matches I have seen her in, she doesn't look that tight in the ring. But I am informed that she is good. I think it might be that she has the look of a star, but she does wrestle well, I am told. I haven't seen anything outside of the matches she's done on Raw recently, where she didn't look that great, but they were tag matches, so she didn't get a lot of time in the ring.
And the second team, which appeared on SmackDown in...
Oh man, this was great! So, you've just watched Raw, and then SmackDown the next day. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen in the women's division. The exact same thing!
I know,
No
right?
way! It's like the writers have no ideas!
Yeah, it was like literally the exact same thing, because Absolution showed up by arriving to... Who did they beat up someone back... Oh yeah, it was Alexa Bliss they beat up backstage.
Yeah, so on Raw they beat up Alexa Bliss. On SmackDown they came in and attacked Naomi first.
Well, they attacked Naomi and then Becky Lynch, and they supposedly injured Becky Lynch. If by injured you mean gave Becky Lynch an excuse to go off filming for a while, but...
Yeah, that's true. She's filming from the Marine.
Yeah,
Which is why, actually I'll briefly mention, which is why The Miz has disappeared after losing his title. He's off filming another Marine movie installment. That's what's happened to The Miz, in case anyone's wondering where he's gone.
It's not because Roman Reigns buried him.
No, it's not. The Miz had to go off and film that. He will be back. Sorry, Sven.
Yeah, this second team became to be known as the Riot Squad, as it's led by Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, and Sarah Logan. Ruby Riott I knew because I'd seen some of her stuff on the NXT YouTube highlights, and I honestly really did like her look and her style. In fact, one of my favourite highlight clips was from a feud she had with Nikki Cross, where it ended up as an outside-the-ring brawl before the match even began. But yeah, I don't know much about the rest.
Ruby Riott is a tremendous wrestler. She's great in the ring. Sarah Logan, I'll give you £1 if you can understand what she's saying. That accent is so thick. Something about game meat jar. And it's just like, I've lost it.
And Liv Morgan, who's okay.
Liv Morgan, I believe the idea of Liv Morgan is she will attract a teenage male audience, which is something they don't really have a lot of. Funnily enough, in WWE, the teenage male audience is quite small for some reason. So she's sort of aimed to attract that audience. She's good in the ring. Her gimmick is very similar to Carmella, which is potentially going to be a problem down the line. But I would hope, seeing as they have Sonya Deville and they're going to bring in a bunch of MMA fighters soon, that the kind of gimmick similarities won't be an issue.
Yeah, so we now have these two teams, and every single week they're attacking a bunch of both Raw and SmackDown strongest stars and making a big name for themselves. That's not to say they're completely the same. I mean, in terms of broad strokes, yes, it's exactly the same, and it's unbelievably lazily so.
I mean, Ruby Riott is an exact comparison to Paige in their kind of look, which is a bit funny. I mean, Ruby Riott is more of a kind of punk girl, if you get what I mean, and Paige is more of a goth, but they fit a similar niche. What bugs me about the teams in general is that they don't have any unity in their dress or their mannerisms. So they're just kind of three people together. Absolution, the name bothers me. Their kind of stick of we believe in Paige. Paige was the founder of the Women's Revolution, which I kind of agree with. I've mentioned this before, where Paige fought in NXT in the main events and sort of raised awareness. And then the Four Horsewomen came around, and then it all sort of grew from there when it started coming to the main roster. But
yeah, this is the thing though, and Absolution. There are two things that bug me about them. First off, that motivation. Now, this could easily be misconstrued, so I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I am very happy that the Women's Revolution happened. I think it's great that women...
Whoa, what's going on here? It's alright, go for it. As Eric Bischoff says, controversy creates cash.
Indeed. But yeah, I'm very happy that the Women's Revolution happened. I really, really like that the women's division is being taken more seriously now, ever so slowly. But I am getting so sick and tired of certain wrestlers popping up and saying that their reason for fighting is, well, I was the one in charge of the Women's Revolution, or I was one of the central players. Okay.
That's not so bad. At the start, I thought you were going to slam on the Women's Revolution as a thing.
Oh, no. No, I would never do that. I am always for progress, especially in terms of women in sport. It's just, I'm so sick of female wrestlers. Well, it's not even female wrestlers. I'm so sick of WWE Creative writing as someone's motivation. Well, I was one of the key members of the Women's Revolution. Great.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you get any kind of special attention for it.
It's just that they've got no ideas at this point I mean, the fact that they had the same idea, the three-woman team, coming on both shows is really strange. The way it works on SmackDown, I do believe that Daniel Bryan might have brought them there to kind of shake up the women's division, but he said no comment on that when interviewed, so it's really interesting. I'm going to return to Daniel Bryan down the line and why I think he's making decisions like this. But the Riot Squad, I like the name a lot more.
Yeah.
Absolution, I don't really see the name. It doesn't work for me.
The other thing that bugs me about Absolution is that, frankly, in terms of what they've done as a team, I've honestly not been that impressed. Because, okay, Paige makes this big thing where she comes down to Sasha and says, I'm back, I was one of the members of the Women's Revolution, so I'm going to beat people up. And then Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose introduce themselves as Paige's minions, and then they start beating people up. And they haven't really won any match clean, which is fine, which would normally be fine if they're heels, but they were originally scheduled for a triple tag match between Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Mickie James, only for them to reveal that, hey, guess what, Sasha? You're on your own, because we went backstage and beat up the other wrestlers before they went into the match. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So I really liked it when they appeared initially and they beat up the face superstars, and then they went back and then they attacked Alexa Bliss as well, saying that they're not taking sides anywhere. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. But then, like you say, the booking has become a bit strange with them. Most notably recently, the entire women's roster came out and ran them out of the arena. And the same thing happened with the Riot Squad. The entire roster basically punk them out, which is not what you want for what's supposed to be a dominant team. And as well with the Riot Squad, they're not even on Clash of Champions in the broader sense. They're going to be lumberjacks in the women's title match. But you're telling me they couldn't have had a match on the pre-show with the 3 of them versus 3 other ladies?
Yeah.
There's the fact that they're doing that thing again, which I really hate, where it's just like, get all of the women in one match and that's it dealt with. Like, we get to have all of their entrances and that's all we care about. And then we can have one match so people remember they exist. Like, no, we could have had a second match. It could have been a 3-man tag match, and that could have been on the pre-show. I don't know why they couldn't fit it in.
Yeah, there are a lot of... I think the big problem I have with a lot of these teams is that they represent a lot of the WWE lazy writing checklist that I really dislike, because, okay, you've had them just introduced as heels and attacking people backstage, which it's kind of been done at this point, but it's also the one that Absolution ticks off for me is the fact that not only do the other 2 wrestlers have no character aside from we're following Paige, it's the fact that why are they not going after Alexa Bliss? I mean, they attacked her once, but they've not made any single move towards the championship. It's more that for some reason we're focusing on beating up Sasha Banks, who, she's a popular wrestler, but that's it. I mean, they even had this whole thing where after Asuka's matches, they would walk into the ring, they would stare at her, and then Asuka would just walk out. And then they did the same again, and then beat up Alicia Fox.
Interesting they had Asuka walk out. They're trying to play it as Asuka's too smart to get beaten up 3-on-1, but Asuka's supposed to be an ass-kicking machine. So I don't think she should have backed out. It's not really the face thing to do. And then they did that bit where Paige says she loves Alicia Fox, and then they beat her up anyway, just to show that there's no allegiance anywhere with the team, which didn't make any sense, because I believe they offered Sasha Banks a spot in Absolution. Just before they beat her up again. She refused. She did the face thing where you stay in the ring and attack them despite the odds being against you. And the next time they attacked Asuka, everyone got involved and ran them out.
Yeah, that was the weird thing, because frankly, none of their actions made sense. Like, initially, the impression I took, because I wasn't 100% sure where they were going with, but I thought they were implying that Asuka was so dangerous they didn't want to attack her, so she was just walking out saying, yeah, I let you live this time. But then all 3 of them attacked Asuka, and I thought, okay, this is when Asuka gets to be ass-kicking. No, she's having a problem fighting 3-on-1, and they're bringing out all the roster. Okay.
One thing I want to mention about Asuka real quick is Asuka started using an armbar instead of the Asuka lock to win her matches. People think that when they bring in Ronda Rousey, they're going to have Ronda beat Asuka in a kind of UFC-style match. So I think we already know how Asuka's probably going to lose her first match, and it'll be against Ronda, which is kind of interesting. They want to put some legitimacy to Ronda in professional wrestling. I'm not saying she's not legit. I'm saying, pro wrestling, sports entertainment is a different thing. They want her to probably beat the baddest woman there, which is what they're probably going to do. The next thing I want to talk about is Nia Jax appeared when everyone attacked Absolution, and Nia Jax has been absent from the women's division for a little while, despite being back. And what's really interesting is the talk of the town is Nia Jax is moving to the Cruiserweight division.
It's not positive talk, I'll say that.
No, so what I really don't like about Nia Jax's potential move to the Cruiserweight division is she's not doing it how Nia Jax should be doing it. When Nia Jax wants to make an impact on the women's division, she comes out and she just beats people up because she's supposed to be a monster. And yet she's going all schoolgirl, googly eyes with pigtails up to Enzo Amore and saying, oh, hi, I liked you in that match. Drew Gulak, I liked your PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, why?
And it's painful. Nia Jax is a machine. She should be going out there and beating people up. So I do actually really hope she does join the Cruiserweight division, although I have checked and she's not under 205.
Yeah. Just...
I'm not saying that's mean, but she's not under 205. Just saying. It's not the X division of TNA, it's not no limits, no weight limits. There is a weight limit on 205. It's in the name. I'm certain, though, she could drop 5 pounds and get in the division.
Yeah.
And I have said that they could have had a woman win the Cruiserweight Championship for quite a while. It's only on the WWE networks. They're not restricted to that PG thing. They only need to defend the title on pay-per-views or on 205 Live. They don't need to defend it on Raw. And they've shown an intergender match on SmackDown, which was a big deal, with James Ellsworth and Becky Lynch, where they showed that they could work an intergender match on their television show.
Yeah.
So it's fine. And I believe they can have Nia Jax in there and win the title. I would really like to see it. It's really good for women's wrestling. And it adds a bit of interest in 205 Live, which is struggling. They're bringing in Hideo Itami and Rockstar Spud from TNA is joining, who Impact are really not happy about because they just forked out a lot of money to pay for his US visa because he's English, and then he left them and he's joining WWE. So he's going to show up real soon.
But yes, speaking of painful. Now, the Riot Squad, conceptually, on paper, I definitely prefer them as the team, not just for the name, but the fact that, unlike Absolution, they've been given, each member has their own distinct character, and they have actively been going after not just the faces, but the champions, in the fact that they had a tag team match against Charlotte, Naomi, and Natalya. Well, one's the current champion, the other two were former champions, so it shows that they weren't messing around. They were going straight after, well, frankly, the best of the best in that division. And the champions, they lost, but they were also able to remain strong because it was implied that the reason they lost was Natalya basically said, screw this, I'm out, and ran for the hills halfway through the match.
Yeah, Natalya's been kind of trying to play both sides. She wants to get everyone on her side, so all of the Lumberjacks are fighting with her. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Even the heel women are still against the Riot Squad because the Riot Squad are just coming there to try and take over, except they're really not because they don't have a match on the pay-per-view. They're just Lumberjacks.
Well, one thing I did actually like in the build-up to that, sorry to interrupt, but the other thing I liked in the build-up to that was that it was also implying that some of the other members are having their own rivalries, like Liv Morgan and Tamina suddenly started having a fight, and it took the other side, the other wrestlers of both sides, to pull them apart. My problem is that their dialogue has been horrendous. Like, I like the fact that they all had their character gimmicks, but I swear, it's like someone in the executives just said, okay, I like this Hunter character. Make it so that she speaks Hunter puns in every single sentence. Would that be confusing? No, I insist on it. So every single line she has, it's always about, well, you gotta lay the traps, or you gotta seek out your prey, you know. It's...
The only one I actually understood was, you've never eaten game meat, have you, Daniel Bryan, or something like that. What does that have to do with anything? That's something we know about people that are out in the wild and live on the land, and that sort of thing.
Oh god, the worst one in that particular conversation I'm thinking of is this one where Liv Morgan, she's described as a firecracker, which basically just means which basically means she plays the Valley Girl type, and she came out with the most baffling line, because there was that conversation you're talking about was when the Riot Squad were pestering Daniel Bryan, because they were actually making the legitimate point of, look, we pinned your current champion in a tag team match, why are we not getting a title shot? Why did you give it to Natalya? But Ruby Riott started making the point, and then Liv Morgan butted in with the point, I know you have a thing for brunettes, but that doesn't mean you should discard blondes from having any title matches, which might have had a point if it wasn't for the one crucial argument, both Natalya and Charlotte are blonde!
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier with the kind of trying to attract teenage boys, I do believe they've over-sexualized Liv Morgan, and that's probably going to be a thing with her character moving forward. What I'm really hoping with these 6 new superstars coming in, 6 women superstars, so it hasn't happened since I can remember, we get 6 women superstars in WWE at once. There's talk of a women's battle royal, a Royal Rumble with women superstars in the next Royal Rumble. We don't know for sure if it's going to be a thing, but I certainly hope it will be.
Yeah, I would certainly hope so, because that, honestly, we have enough wrestlers for it now, and I'm definitely liking it in terms of numbers. I would definitely be happy with that. I'm just kind of disappointed about how they went about it with these, because the fact that they both went with the carbon copy same premise was kind of annoying, especially when you could have introduced the teams but come up with something different for them. Like, how about a female Shield? Like, a female face group that decides, you know what, there's too much of this cheating going on, we're going to take you down a peg. I mean, you can definitely do that in SmackDown, because I think there's literally, like, 3 face characters right now. Charlotte, Naomi, and Becky Lynch, and one of them they took out.
Yeah, I said before that I don't like that there's no unity in the team's appearance. Definitely, especially with a name like the Riot Squad, they could have all been punk-type characters in their appearance. Maybe it's just the teams got rushed through too quickly. It doesn't seem like there was a lot of planning in these teams coming through. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done the exact same thing on both shows.
Yeah, it's that whole thing we talked about in our first episode about the week-to-week booking versus long planning. This seems to be like one of those things where they just rushed it through and no plan whatsoever, and now they're just trying to pick themselves up.
You know, I recall Corey Graves mentioning it because he does both shows on commentary, that I saw something very similar to this happen on Raw when talking about the Riot Squad. So even the commentators are going to mention it.
I mean, by contrast, the Bludgeon Brothers have been coming out recently, and yeah, they've been attacking jobbers, but that kind of shows what happens when you put a little bit more thought and planning into a team and how their dynamic works.
You know, I talked about them over-sexualizing Liv Morgan. Her Twitter handle has a tongue emoji in the name.
So, yeah, that's basically all I wanted to say, is that, I mean, I like that there's more women now shaking things up from the previous dynamics, some of which were getting a bit stale. I just kind of wish that there was a bit more direction and focus to them, or at the very least, of the two, the Riot Squad seem like the better team that are actually getting the most stuff done. I just kind of wish they were a better script writer for them, frankly.
Yeah, I wish they had a match on Clash of Champions.
Yeah,
I don't know how they couldn't fit one in. But just to clarify, Jonin, you are pro Women's Revolution, right?
Yes.
Not that I didn't think you were, it sounded a little weird back then.
Yeah, I know, I apologize. It's just, I mean, I wouldn't even mind that as a motivation if they had said in Absolution's thing that it was like, oh, what was her name? She delivered a pipe bomb when she left ages ago. If it had been a thing like, you are all incredibly shallow plastic women, I'm going to show you what a real wrestler looks like.
AJ Lee.
Yeah, that's the one. If they had had a motivation like that, I wouldn't have minded it so much, but it's the fact that I started this, now I want special attention and credit, which is not how that works.
AJ Lee was a good character because she's very anti-divas towards the end of her tenure in WWE. And in fact, she was anti-Total Divas, to be particular, because anyone that was on the Total Divas show, she claimed of having sucked up to get that position, to put it bluntly. And they didn't deserve their spot, which at the time was true for some of those wrestlers, in my opinion. But now, thankfully, we have a much better roster of women wrestlers. So we're going to move on to the NXT War Games and Survivor Series results. Let's find out how terribly wrong we were. So I would like to start off with NXT War Games, and would you believe it? As always, NXT TakeOver was better than the pay-per-view that was after it. It almost always is. Having said that, every time I've watched it, it always was. So when I say almost always, it always is better. You know, funnily enough, even when WrestleMania comes around, most of the time, the TakeOver is better. That's how crazy it is. But like I said before, on TakeOver, they have a lot more time to prepare for these matches than they do on Survivor Series, at least for most of them. So the first match we had was the crucially important to the NXT Women's Division, Ruby Riott versus Sonya Deville. And I can't wait to see where these two competitors go after... Oh, wait, they both went to the main roster. Okay. You know what's funny is after this, they had a Falls Count Anywhere match on the regular NXT show. So it's really crazy that they had a singles match on the pay-per-view. No special rules. So the rivalry continued past the point where they're on the main roster. And that's because there's a bit of a tape delay because NXT is pre-recorded and the regular shows are live. So that's why you have this. Ruby Riott won, which was interesting. Ruby Riott should have won because she is the leader of her faction. Sonya Deville is not the leader of her faction. I think most people are on the opinion that Ruby Riott is a better wrestler. She's definitely a more experienced wrestler, so I'm happy with that result.
Yeah, I think Sonya Deville, from what I've seen of her, she's obviously a good fighter and a good performer. It's just more getting used to the style of fighting in terms of pro wrestling, and I suppose promoting herself as a character and a wrestler.
Yes. Next up, we had a really good match. We knew it was going to be a really good match. It was Pete Dunne facing Johnny Gargano for the WWE United Kingdom Championship. Really interesting to see a non-UK competitor go for the United Kingdom Championship. Means it is a thing that can happen. And Pete Dunne retained, of course he did. You wouldn't want to have at this stage, a non-UK competitor with the United Kingdom Championship. You'd make it another US title or Intercontinental title, whereas they intend it to be on a UK-only show. They probably don't want to give it to Johnny Gargano. Johnny Gargano's on a bit of a losing streak recently, although he has since this time won a match leading into a number one contendership match for the NXT World Championship. And I'm going to talk about that a bit later, because the reason why that is happening will be explained when I talk about the main event. Other than that, this was a really good match. Pete Dunne and Johnny Gargano, both really good wrestlers, really experienced wrestlers, really great inside the ring. As you expect, it was a technical showcase with a lot of joint manipulation from Pete Dunne, which shouldn't be allowed in the rules, but nevertheless he seems to get away with it. That was a great match. One of the best matches of the show, in fact. Fantastic match. Johnny Gargano always has those highlight-worthy matches, so it's great to see that. Next up we had, without a doubt in my mind, the worst match on the card. Lars Sullivan versus Cassius Ohno. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! That's the theme music, everybody. Okay, and as much as I regret singing that, I regret watching that match. It wasn't that. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. It was the worst match on the card, and there were a lot of good matches on there. And the reason it was bad is because it was two big guys fighting when you'd just seen two smaller people having a very technical match, and then after this you see again two smaller people having a more technical match. So heavyweight versus heavyweight wasn't that exciting.
Yeah, that's kind of why people think that the Cruiserweight division's been moved to 205 Live, is because they don't want the Cruiserweights showing up the big guys. I don't know whether that's true, but it does make some kind of sense given that kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, what doesn't make sense about the Cruiserweight division is it being on Raw, because then the Cruiserweights have to be on Raw and SmackDown, because 205 Live is filmed after SmackDown. But then the more I think about it, with SmackDown Live not being able to have two women's matches on their pay-per-view, they definitely couldn't fit a Cruiserweight match on their pay-per-view. So it does make more sense than being on Raw. After that, we had another very interesting match, a match of Say My Name. It was Aleister Black versus the Velveteen Dream.
Oh, yes.
And the best thing about this match wasn't anything to do with the match. It was the ring gear of the Velveteen Dream. And he had those amazing tights, which had Aleister Black depicted on them. And it reminded me very much of Rick Rude. And it reminded me of when he battled the Ultimate Warrior, where Rick Rude would have the Ultimate Warrior's face basically on his genitals. Similar thing here. Aleister Black was on the Velveteen Dream's tights. It looked amazing. It even said, "Say my name" on the tights. Very funny, very nice touch. The match was pretty good, actually, despite Velveteen Dream being not as experienced as Aleister Black. Aleister Black and Velveteen Dream still put on a really good match. What made it much more interesting was the drama between it, how the characters interacted with each other, which is something I want to see on a lot more matches. We've spoken about that in length before. And the fact that there was a narrative behind this match where Velveteen Dream didn't necessarily want to win, but he wanted Aleister Black to recognize him and to say his name. And when Aleister Black defeated the Velveteen Dream, he did afterwards sit next to him, turn to him, and say his name. And there's a little backstage segment that I watched on WWE.com where Dream was just unable to speak. All he could put out was, he said my name, as he sort of slowly rubbed himself.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to see the match, but I did hear about that finale, and yeah, if I do ever sign up to WWE.com, that is one of the first tweets I'm checking out, because that did sound like a really good moment.
Yeah, and the good thing about the WWE Network, other than it being just $9.99, as the catchphrase tells you, I mean, the thing that bugs me is it's £9.99 as well as $9.99 overseas, so we're paying more, which has always bugged me, because we waited a long time for the network. Over here, at least we did. You know, there was delays. You get to watch shows like NXT TakeOver in full quality, and NXT in 205 Live. A lot better than you would see elsewhere on the internet. The quality's a lot better.
True.
After that, we have the Fatal 4-Way match for the vacant NXT Women's Championship. Asuka gave it up because no one is ready for Asuka, so no one could beat her. This allowed someone else to take the title. essentially. And it allowed Asuka to move on to the main roster being undefeated, which is really cool. We have Ember Moon, Kairi Sane, Nikki Cross, and Peyton Royce. It was a very good match. I expected, and I was wrong, Kairi Sane to be the woman to win it. Ember Moon walked away with the title. I do see the wisdom. I do still have the opinion that Ember Moon doesn't need the title. She's got a very good look. Her finisher is very exciting. And she doesn't really need the title. I think, if anything, Ember Moon could probably jump to be heel. Because she's got that very mysterious persona. I know she's popular. And she has a high-flying move as a finisher, which they tend to think means that you have to be a face. But I think we're in the stage where superstars can be heel and athletic. And when I'm talking about NXT women wrestlers, it reminds me of when Carmella was in NXT. She did several outside dives in a match, and she wrestled really well, but that's nothing that she's done like that in the main roster. So you really see these superstars slow down when they go to the main roster. Maybe they don't have enough time to rehearse for the matches, or maybe the WWE trainers don't like them taking those kind of risks on the main roster. Either way, this was a really good match. Kairi Sane, well, I was thinking was going to win it with that insane elbow, but it ended up the Eclipse set the sun on the other wrestlers. Interesting to see that Peyton Royce was not accompanied by her partner of the iconic duo, which seemed really stupid to me because it's a fatal four-way, so you can interfere as much as you like and you wouldn't get disqualified. But there you go. That happened.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. I admit to being wrong. I'm trying to...
I suppose it does make some kind of sense that they were prepping her up, because from what I heard, that initially before Asuka got injured, they were preparing for Ember Moon to take the title off her, so I guess it makes sense that they want to give her that brief championship run. I mean, in theory, you could have Ember Moon be swiftly defeated by someone else and lose her championship, and that would set her back to heel. But I guess we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, so my thought was that Billie Kay could have been involved in the match and could have helped out Peyton Royce. But then I remember in a previous match, which was another Fatal 4-Way, I believe, and I think it was Asuka, Nikki Cross, Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. There was a point where Peyton Royce and Billie Kay were in the ring by themselves, and they have often said that if one of them has the title, they both have the title. I don't know why one of them didn't just drop to the mat and let the other pin them. It was ridiculous. They went out and they tried to grab Asuka and bring her back in, and Asuka just beat them up. That's what you expect. Another candidate that I thought could have got the title was Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross has been really great, especially with that ladder match with Asuka. But then Nikki Cross, she doesn't need the title. She can just come out and be crazy, and that's enough. The iconic duo with Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, I think they will get their hands on the title at some point. And then again, maybe not, because I've heard that they were moving up to SmackDown for quite a while. Ember Moon, a good fit for the title. I think she'll do well with it. And there you go. Next up, you have the World Championship match. The NXT World title between Andrea Cien Almas with Zelina Vega and Drew McIntyre. Now, this was a very physical match. And, of course, Zelina Vega got involved because she's awesome. That's what you do when you want your client to win. Very happy with how the match done. I was very happy with the finish, actually, because Andrade got the win. Even though Zelina was heavily involved in the match, it didn't affect the outcome of the match, because the outcome was just a huge DDT from the top rope into his signature move, and that defeated Drew McIntyre. What was surprising is at the end, and you could see it in Drew's eyes when he got up, he was clutching his arm, you could see that expression on his face, and you knew that he was injured, and he wasn't moving right, and he looked around with that anger that you can tell that he's experienced this kind of injury before. And I believe it was a torn bicep or something along those lines. Such bad timing for Drew McIntyre when his career is going so well at this time. To have a setback like this, it's very bad for him. And there's never a good time to get injured, and this is the worst time. And that's why we have now these matches for a fatal 4-way number one contendership match on NXT, because Drew McIntyre cannot claim that number one contenders match. He has to have surgery to have that torn bicep fixed. And I want to quickly talk about one of those qualifying matches that's happened on NXT, which was between Killian Dane and Trent Seven from the UK Championship. It really bugged me, because it was really cool that Trent Seven managed to qualify for one of these matches, and he was in the world title picture in NXT, but he got destroyed. I don't think he put up any offense against Killian Dane from Sanity, which really bugged me. because Trent Seven is a very good superstar. And you can't have someone squashed like that. You just can't. It kills their momentum.
Yeah.
So, like, what's going to happen with Mustache Mountain himself and Tyler Bates? Tyler Bates, I believe, is getting another UK Championship match down the line as well, so that'll be really cool to watch. You can't have someone lose that badly. He should have put up more offense. I don't understand the squash match with a. I know that Tyler Bates is not a young man. I'm going to quickly, I forgot to mention this earlier, that I remember I said that Lars Sullivan was not that younger chap. He's actually younger than me. So that shows me. It's probably that grey hair on his beard that makes me think he's older than he is. Trent Seven, he's not one of the younger competitors in the UK scene. So you want to use these guys as best as you can. You don't want to have them squashed this badly. You don't want anyone squashed that badly, really.
Yeah, I mean, you only really do that if you're trying to establish someone as a monster, like, again, kind of like the Bludgeon Brothers or Matanza or Lucha Underground, but not with just any regular wrestler, really.
Yeah, so Trent Seven is 36, so he's, like, realistically got about 4 years. And if you want to use him well, you can't have him look so bad in a match. It didn't look good for him. But yes, Andrade Cien Almas won the match. Very happy to see him go from jobber to champion. He was really not doing so well in NXT a little while ago, but now he's turned it around with Selena Vega via Trinidad. That's made a good turn. And then we had the big match, the War Games match. It was the Undisputed Era Shock the System with Adam Cole, baby! Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly versus the Authors of Pain, Akam and Razar, Roderick Strong, who was dressed as the Authors of Pain in the same gear, and he looked like an action man. And then you had Sanity, Alexander Wolf, Eric Young, and Killian Dane. This match was really good. The rules were not as I expected. They changed them up a little bit from the regular War Games rules. The match was completely different anyway, so it had to be a bit different. It was interesting to see how they played it out. The match was very violent. I believe when Killian Dane got involved, he brought weapons into the match, which included the table, which ended up being Alexander Wolf going through the table with a horrendous cut on the back of his head. I think the camera even panned away from it. There was a ton of blood on the ground. It comes from those metal supports on the sides of the tables, I think. So occasionally, I've seen it before with Hardcore Holly ages ago when Brock Lesnar put him through a table and he had a huge gash on his side. Sometimes he hit it the wrong way. That metal will, it'll cut you up, and that was the problem. But the match was really good. My only problem was that the shock to the system. The Undisputed Era weren't as impressive as I wanted them to be. I know in the non-televised matches, the Undisputed Era has taken the titles off Sanity, which, by the way, this wasn't a tag titles match, because I think the only person that wasn't eligible would have been Roderick Strong in the Authors of Pain, but other than that, they were all tag teams, 3-man tag teams. I don't know why the tag team titles weren't involved. Crazy. Nevertheless, and I said before that it's funny that Roderick Strong was part of the Authors of Pain, or adopted by them, because he dressed the same, but he didn't look the part, because they're huge and he's small by comparison. He looked like an action man next to some giant children. What bugged me is that the Undisputed Era, particularly Adam Cole ran to the top and tried to sort of stay out of the match. He was at the top of the cell. You couldn't win by escape, by the way. That was another weird thing. There was no top on the War Games cage. Initially, when Dusty Rhodes envisioned this match, it had a top of the cage. It was the first cage to have that, and that's so that they could lower it down from the top, because originally cages were built around the ring, and it took forever. So it was really weird not to see a cage, but then I guess it meant that the cameras could film in. But anyway, I digress. Adam Cole stayed out of the match for too much. That bugged me. It didn't make them look very strong, and they won the match. I guess they were the right team to win, because they are the new team. They want to be taking over the place. They're another faction. And as I said, they've taken the tag titles from Sanity, which is really funny, because on the regular NXT, they showed a promo from Sanity where they held the tag titles in the background. Killian Dane had them, but I know for a fact they don't have them anymore, which is funny. Undisputed Era take them at some point. Despite the Undisputed Era winning this match, it really didn't give them any momentum. That kind of 50-50 booking caught up with them when Adam Cole, baby, took on Aleister Black in one of the qualifying matches for the Fatal 4-Way for the NXT number one contendership. Aleister Black beat Adam Cole, and I really don't understand that decision. I feel like Aleister Cole needed to win that match. Aleister Black can take a loss if Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly come out and cause interference. They didn't. It was just a clean loss to Aleister Black, which I don't understand. I know you want to make Aleister Black look unstoppable, but I don't think you do it at the expense of Adam Cole, who's the leader of the Undisputed Era. Shock the system. So there you go. That's NXT TakeOver War Games. And interesting outcomes there. Mm-hmm. So we should move on to Survivor Series.
Yeah, and this, I've seen a couple of highlight clips and I know the results of, so I can actually join in on this one.
No worries. Okay, so, with Survivor Series, the first match we had was between Elias and Matt Hardy. It didn't really amount to anything. Elias got an easy win over Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy, at this point, was sort of dropping down the card before his Woken revival.
And then Enzo Amore versus Kalisto. Enzo won, and we all saw that coming.
Yeah, really didn't expect anything from this match, unfortunately. And this was another pre-show match. I can't say I'm really a fan of the Enzo-Kalisto rivalry. We've talked to death about this, haven't we? That Enzo is not the person you want at the helm of 205 Live. And I know you're supposed to be rooting for someone to come in there and take him down, but it's really hard when it's so annoying to watch the program. I will say that I'm quite excited about what they're building up at 205 Live at the moment, with Drew Gulak potentially breaking away from the Zoe train with Team PowerPoint. I would like to see Drew Gulak as a face campaigning for a better 205 Live, a 205 Live without Enzo. Drew Gulak's been really good on commentary recently. I particularly like when he does his... because he's like a political character, he'll be asked a question like, when you face Enzo, will you be beating him for the title? And he'll do that kind of, that's a really good question, I like your question, I appreciate you making it. Now if you look at this match right here, and just completely move it away. And he also is able to, on commentary, he's a great character on commentary, to change things the way he wants it to, because his Team PowerPoint partner, Tony Nese, did an outside dive, to which they criticised Drew Gulak for, but Drew Gulak's response was, he wasn't flying, he was falling, he was using gravity to his advantage, which was an amazing line. So I hope that that's something that happens. They may need another face, now that Rich Swann has been suspended, because Rich Swann, with the domestic abuse charges, he may find himself out of a job with WWE.
Indeed, yes. I mean, the only other face that could have been there was Jack Gallagher, but now he's turned heel, so yeah, they definitely need another face, because let's face it, if the Kalisto versus Enzo Amore feud didn't work the past 5 times they've had it...
yeah, it's getting stale. Well, they've got Hideo Itami coming in and Rockstar Spud at some point, so we'll see where that goes. And then potentially Nia Jax. The third pre-show match, just nice to see them on the card, really. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus Breezango. It almost felt like a punishment at the time to have them face Breezango, a team that is arguably a joke. I really like what Breezango is doing outside of the ring, but they're not portrayed as a serious contender in any form. So when you have 2 big single stars like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn facing a joke tag team...
I mean, honestly, Breezango are only really well known these days for their Fashion Files segments, but not... They haven't really had that many actual wrestling matches as of late.
Having said that, I think the Fashion Files might be moving to Facebook Live.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I don't know if it's Facebook Watch or if it's moving to the WWE Network exclusively.
Yeah, I guess we'll see when that pans out. And with that, that was Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's appearance on the pre-show.
Indeed. We now move on to the first main event, The Shield versus The New Day. I mean, it was nice that Roman wasn't in the main event, because it makes a nice change, but at the same time, yeah, they won. We kind of knew that was coming.
We did. Like I predicted, we couldn't possibly see Roman Reigns lose a match. It was a shame because the Shield are not a real team. They're 3 singles competitors that are eventually going to move off to 3 singles goals. The New Day are a team. They're going to be a team for a very long time. They're probably going to go down the line and beat some title-holding records. So it doesn't make sense. They have this problem as well, like where they always have the more popular team or someone they want to establish more, like in this case Roman Reigns, who couldn't possibly lose a match. If he can't take 2 punches in a row without blocking, he's not going to lose a match. They did this in India, where they had Triple H beat Jinder Mahal in India.
Yeah, I know.
Didn't make any sense. Especially when Jinder Mahal is going for a title match down the line. What good does it do to Triple H to beat Sting at WrestleMania? What good does it do Triple H to beat Jinder Mahal in India? Like, why does he need to be put over? Is it his ego? Because he doesn't need to look that big. Triple H is Triple H. His career stands for itself. He doesn't need those wins.
I mean, if nothing else, he owns part of the bloody company now.
Yeah, and if they wanted to, they could just set up a load of big matches for him prior to when they want to use him again. He doesn't have to win the big matches that show up, especially against Jinder Mahal in India. That didn't make any sense.
I mean, the only thing that made even less sense than that was in one of the untaped house shows where he became a member of the Shield, despite the fact
that he did. That made no sense. Because Seth Rollins hates him.
Yeah, and one of his previous feuds was basically him demanding that the Shield will be no more.
Yeah, I think he also teamed with the New Day on a live event and then attacked them after the win. So... you know, what's going on there? But then these are things that they add to live events to make them attractive. So people are like, oh, this moment happened in this live event. Maybe I should show up to this. Or maybe we just call a live event Starcade and see what happens. Recently, actually, in the Tribute to the Troops, the Shield had a match on that, which was pretty cool. And I remember reading from an article that they missed a big opportunity there where the Shield, who wear kind of SWAT gear, could have wore camo gear. And that would have been a really good chance for them to connect to the troops and... merchandise. That could have been a new set of toys.
True.
So that was a thing. After that, we had Team Raw on the women's side, made up of Alicia Fox, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Asuka, and Nia Jax versus the SmackDown team. Sorry, SmackDown Live. Team of Becky Lynch, Naomi, Carmella, Natalya, and Tamina with Lana.
I mean, it did go the way we expected. Not quite with the whole Asuka versus the entire team, but, you know, it was still her against Tamina and Natalya, 2 of the strongest competitors.
Yeah, it went down fairly close to how we predicted. I expected a less even match, but then it did come down to Asuka bringing it home for the team, which is what I wanted to see, because you've really got to try and set up Asuka as this unstoppable monster, and that's what they started trying to do. After that, we had the United States champion, Baron Corbin,
versus The Miz, the Intercontinental champion, and this did not go how either of us predicted. Even my bonus prediction never came true, because, well, it's kind of hard for Baron Corbin to beat someone up at the end of a match when he did it during the match.
Yes, so what we now know is that this was setting up for The Miz to lose against Roman Reigns and then to go off and do some filming for a little while. So there was some wisdom behind this. Even so, it still felt wrong to see Baron Corbin defeat The Miz.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to put my finger on what it is about Baron Corbin that's irritating me as of late, because, like, he's got the look of an imposing champion, and he does have an interesting character, that of an entitled jock, but I don't know, there's something about his matches and the way he carries himself on that just really irritates me at this stage.
Yeah, I think I would like to see him add some variety to his moveset and maybe mix it up a bit, because he seems to just sort of move around the ring a bit. I know he is a heel, so he has to be hated, but I think he could be a bit more entertaining in the ring.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just the way he carries himself off as a heel is just kind of boring, right?
Yeah, I think he used to go out and attack people all the time. I think he just needs a big moment for him. And that didn't happen against John Cena because John Cena buried him. He got a good win against The Miz here, but like we mentioned, it wasn't an impressive match. It really was kind of a toilet break in the show, if you will. And if Baron Corbin is being pushed, which he is, which sets up to something I'm probably going to talk about when we move to Clash of Champions on his Intercontinental title defense. They really need to find ways
United States Championship defense.
There you go, Intercontinental title defense for Baron Corbin. No, you're right, United States.
Yeah.
There you go.
Roman Reigns is the Intercontinental Champion, the fighting champion, which we're going to have to watch week after week after week.
Yeah.
Although, in fairness, he is actually doing a lot better than we could have hoped for, in fairness. So
Roman Reigns is probably a good shout for the US title. It's just how much he will defend it.
yeah.
Because he does want to be doing this Shield storyline, which won't necessarily have him involved in defending that title. But, Roman Reigns is going to be up in the card, whatever he's doing anyway, so it's probably better for the title than it is for it not to be used.
So, next up was the tag team matches against the Usos and the Bar, and the Usos won.
It's a pretty hard-hitting match. Pretty cool to see this. I'm glad that it was the Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro involved in this match. Put them, up on stage, although you don't know how much further Bar is going to go, because I believe Sheamus is dealing with a spinal injury, a fairly serious one. It's preventing him from taking any serious bumps. It's the same problem that Sting had. So I don't know how much longer Sheamus is going to be taking these bumps before he has to retire. I know they're trying to lessen the amount of bumps he took, but if you watch his match last Raw, he did a lot of stuff that you wouldn't really be doing if you had a spinal injury. And he does have a serious spinal injury. So we'll see where that develops. But the Usos won. They probably should win. They're moving on into another SmackDown tag title match at Clash of Champions. That's the next pay-per-view, so they should look strong for it.
Then there was the Women's Championship matches between Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. And like we predicted, Charlotte Flair came out on top of this one.
Yeah, Charlotte Flair is so hot right now. She's got so much momentum behind her. I'm not necessarily saying that the SmackDown Women's title is more valuable at this time than the Raw Women's Championship, but I see it as a more contested title than the Raw Women's Championship.
Well, yeah, mainly because the SmackDown writers actually remember that it's something that you're supposed to go after the championship, as opposed to Raw's writers who just have Alexa Bliss in the corner and then just have all the women fighting each other for reasons that escape me, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, it's good for Alexa Bliss because she gets to retain that championship, and the days she's holding it are counting up. But from an entertainment standpoint, the title's not being defended.
Yeah, I still don't get that at all. Like, you have Asuka, you have Nia Jax, you have Sasha Banks. I mean, hell, you have even Absolution now. Why is no one going after that title?
Yeah, it baffles me because in any other division, if you want to get noticed, you go out and you attack the champion. And that just doesn't seem to be happening in the Raw Women's division. I mean, people do get title shots, but it's a proven fact that if you actually want a title shot, you don't work your way up the card. I mean, this worked for Jason Jordan. You just go out and attack somebody. You just go out and go, hey, Roman Reigns, you suck, dude. I want a title match. And that works.
I don't get it, but yeah. On to what many consider to be the best match of the night. The Universal Champion, Brock Lesnar, versus the WWE World Champion, AJ Styles.
Yeah, and for the opening part of this match, I was very concerned that AJ would not get any offense in the match. They really had him beaten down at the start. Thankfully, AJ came back with some serious offense. And as I've mentioned before, they seem to be content with a wrestler, if they have any offense against Brock Lesnar, to have come out looking strong.
I mean, in fairness, everyone has criticisms against Brock Lesnar, like the fact that he's only a part-timer, but one thing I will always say, Brock is very, very good at selling a move, so that when AJ Styles performed the calf crush on him, he was really sold it like, oh crap, I'm in trouble, my leg's in pain. Like, even at the very end of the match, where he added that extra limp, as if to imply that he was still suffering from the effects of it, that was a good way of showing that, yeah, Brock Lesnar is unstoppable, but AJ Styles isn't someone you want to underestimate either.
Yes, I believe they made it out that AJ Styles was very close to a win. Particularly, as you mentioned, Brock limping to the back was a very good sell from Brock Lesnar to make it look like he was probably only moments away from actually being forced to tap, which seems unlikely, but at the very least passing out from the pain and losing the match. Or perhaps the person with a ring bell calling the match by himself, because, that guy's out for himself sometimes. I'm glad they made AJ look like he can deliver some offense and stay in there, but again was defeated by one F5. The thinking is that with the F5 being a finishing move, they used it on Goldberg, they used it on Strowman with just one F5 being the winning move, that they're saving it for Roman Reigns to kick out of an F5. Even though we know people do kick out of it, they want to make it look like they don't at present. Until Roman Reigns definitely does. Then we had Team Raw. Kurt Angle, Braun Strowman, Finn Balor and Samoa Joe, and Triple H versus Team SmackDown Live. Shane McMahon, Randy Orton, Bobby Roode, Shinsuke Nakamura, and John Cena, because John Cena does whatever he wants. If Team Raw lost, Kurt Angle would have been fired as a Raw general manager.
Yeah, that was the extra stipulation added. Although, my God, we were talking about WWE wanting to push someone and making them look strong. Braun Strowman pretty much trampled all over most of the competition.
Yeah, I think the people that looked fairly weak in this match, Bobby Roode didn't look great, neither did Shinsuke Nakamura for that matter, particularly for Bobby Roode, who was eliminated very quickly. It was bad to see that happen. You got a little bit from Finn Balor, but again, he was eliminated, and when it came down to the final people, that's when we had a bit of a strange happening.
Indeed. Because... Or to put it another way, hashtag I was right.
Yep.
First off, we had, as I predicted, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens came in, ran some interference, and I forget exactly what they did, whether it was just...
Okay, so they pulled Shane McMahon off the apron when Randy Orton was going for a tag. The thing about this, though, at the time, I remember thinking, this doesn't even matter, because... It might not have been Randy Orton, it might have been John Cena. It doesn't matter, really.
But
whoever
the point
it was.
Is...
They pulled Shane McMahon off the apron when he was going to receive a tag to get in the match. The point was it didn't really matter at the time because they were lower numbers. I think that Kurt Angle, Triple H and Braun Strowman were still in on Raw, and it was very much against it. I didn't think that Team SmackDown could possibly win, especially with Shane. I mean, what was Shane going to go in there and do? Like, just getting beaten up by Strowman was what was going to happen.
But then, as it turned out, the thing you predicted came true. And the reason why, when we did the last episode, you thought SmackDown was going to win was because the team self-destructed. Triple H just turned round and knocked out Kurt Angle. But then, he turned round, knocked out Shane McMahon, and then threw the unconscious Kurt Angle on top of him to give Team Raw the win.
He threw Shane McMahon on top of Kurt Angle to eliminate Kurt Angle, and then he beat Shane McMahon himself.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry for getting the corrections. But yeah, it seems kind of interesting. Like, we were talking about how, I don't know if it's WWE Creative or Hunter himself.
Triple H has got to win those big matches.
Yeah, not only did he win this match, but my God, how many feuds has he set up? Because he set up a feud against Kurt Angle, and there's one against Jason Jordan as well, potentially. But he also set up a feud against Braun Strowman, because Braun was still active at that match, and he was basically giving him a glare of, "Don't you dare upstage me like that again."
I think that Braun Strowman's look of confusion was the look on every fan's face at the time. And when he came in, he said something along the lines of, if you ever do something like that again, you will never play this game again. And then, for some reason, Triple H attacked Braun Strowman as he was walking away. Baffling, because Triple H is supposed to be a smart guy, and that guy's huge.
Yeah.
And Braun Strowman gave him, I think, a choke slam and then a running power slam. Which was a kind of cool ending, but a baffling ending. I remember a lot of people just didn't get why that happened.
And then the next week, they continued that with, at first, setting up the feud that we know about between Kurt Angle and Triple H, but then having Braun Strowman come in and give him an evil stare, causing Triple H to run away again.
Yeah, I don't know if the Triple H versus Kurt Angle feud is in doubt, because Kurt Angle, I think he sustained an injury on a live event. I don't know if it's a serious one. It's definitely something that hasn't been heavily reported. So I'm not sure if that match is going on, and they might be redirecting it to Braun Strowman and Triple H.
Just have a backup clause, yeah.
Either way, they haven't continued it on the shows at this point.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be something that develops towards WrestleMania, maybe towards Royal Rumble.
I mean, the only other person they could have as the get-out clause would be Jason Jordan, but on fact, guys, before this, if it wasn't for the announcement of the Mid-Max tag, I'd be talking about what the hell they're doing with Jason Jordan right now, because, man, is he all over the place at the moment.
Well, apparently Jason Jordan wants to fight everybody twice a night. Which makes no sense.
And he wants to be taken seriously, but he keeps going to his dad, Kurt Angle, to get every single match. It also doesn't help as well that Kurt Angle very recently said, okay, you held your own against Roman Reigns and John Cena, but you didn't actually beat them.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I talk about with Brock Lesnar. Like, it doesn't make any sense or get you any higher in the rankings to look really good against somebody. If you don't beat them, you've lost the match.
So, yeah, that was Survivor Series. That was just... Our predictions were fairly accurate for most of the matches. It was just a few, well, frankly, baffling decisions. Like the Baron Corbin stuff and the Triple H self-destruct machination.
Yeah, hopefully that's a setup of something greater further on, but we will see.
But yeah, like I mentioned, the reason we're not talking about Jason Jordan now is because WWE have made an interesting announcement. They have recently joined in a collaboration with Facebook's new streaming service, Facebook Watch, I believe it's called. And
So Facebook Watch or Facebook Live, Jonin, please tell me, what the hell is Facebook Watch?
I would be happy to tell you. The problem is, I don't know. All I know is that WWE has this plan for it. They're collaborating with Facebook Watch in order to provide a mini tournament that is exclusive for it. Specifically, a tag team tournament. It will begin on January the 6th, and it will be streamed on Facebook at Tuesdays, 10 p.m. I forget if that's Eastern or Western time in America, but yeah, it will be streaming right after SmackDown, 2:05 live, for those who are wondering. It is being pushed back by half an hour so that this match can happen.
That's interesting.
It's a single elimination tag match tournament for 12 weeks, and the winner will gain $100,000 for a charity of their choice, which, as many people have pointed out, is odd for a predetermined competition, especially if a heel wins, but whatever.
Yeah, so 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Time.
Okay, that makes sense.
12 episodes from the 16th of January. It's going to feature superstars from both shows, Raw and SmackDown.
Indeed.
Single elimination tournament. Interesting.
But there is a twist, and this is the reason why I'm talking about it, because some people have already criticised it, like David Meltzer has said it's more product and it's probably not going to be good product at their rust, and I can see that, but the reason I bring it up, and the reason it's getting some traction on social media, is because, as you said, it features superstars from both Raw and SmackDown. But it is a mixed gender tag team match. Each tag team will be made up of one female superstar and one male superstar.
My question here is, on this mixed tag tournament, will it be man versus man, woman versus woman? Because that's typically what they do in WWE. So when, let's say the man tags out to a woman, the man on the other side would have to go out and the woman would have to come in.
Yeah,
since this is Facebook Live, are they just going to not do that?
I mean, it's possible they might not do that. They're treating it like serious tag teams because, well, here's the thing. First off, a lot of it is being left up. They're trying to get the social media interaction in, so there is a lot of things they're doing right now. They've announced which stars, at the time of recording, I should stress, they've announced which stars are going to be in which teams, but they haven't set up the actual teams. They've said, take to social media and decide which superstars should be paired up. So on the Raw side, the choices are Alexa Bliss, Alicia Fox, Asuka, Bayley, Braun Strowman, Enzo Amore, Finn Balor, Goldust, Sasha Banks, Nia Jax, Samoa Joe, and The Miz.
So I instantly want to team up Asuka with Samoa Joe and have the most unstoppable team ever!
Indeed, yes.
Oh, sorry, wait, maybe Asuka with Braun Strowman. And, actually, no, I want to put Asuka with Enzo Amore so she kills him.
Yeah, I mean, there have been some suggestions flying around. Like, I'll get into some of it a bit more, but on the Raw side, Finn Balor on social media has said he would like to be paired up with Bayley, although there was actually on the WWE YouTube channel, there was a video which was just Sasha Banks and Bayley casually talking about who they would want. Bayley said she would like Samoa Joe, and Sasha Banks said she wanted Braun Strowman. It could potentially work as a tag team, but the reason I can't take it seriously is because Bayley then followed it up afterwards by saying, you could be like Diddy Kong hopping onto Braun Strowman's back, which I can't get out of my head as a mental image.
So I know that Bayley is a very good fit for Finn Balor because I've seen Bayley in NXT recreate Finn Balor's entrance with the use of his ring gear and everything for Finn Balor as a surprise, which is really funny. And you know what? Bayley does a very good Finn Balor entrance. On WWE.com, they have an entrance swap where they had Jimmy Uso and Naomi swap entrances. And although Naomi did a passable Uso entrance, Jimmy did not do a good feel the glow moment. But in this case, I feel like Bayley and Finn could do a really cool joint entrance.
I would actually love it if Bayley also dressed up as a demon just for the heck of it.
The hug demon. Wait, the cuddle monster.
But yes, I'll mention some of my specific teams in a moment, but I should also bring up the SmackDown side, which is Becky Lynch, Bobby Roode, Carmella, Charlotte Flair, Jimmy Uso, Lana, Naomi, Natalya, Rusev, Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura, and one of the New Day. But that's also been put up to social media vote as to which member of the New Day is going to be the final member of SmackDown.
Well, I think you go Big E. I don't think there's any debate on that. Kofi's a 10-time champion, and he's very good with tag teams, actually. Without knowing who you're going to face, it's difficult because Kofi is very good. But Big E brings the power. I know I love Xavier Woods, but he's the least wrestling acclaimed. He's done the least, in the squared circle than the other two. One's a big guy, and he's held some titles. The other's a guy who's held many titles in his reign. And then, Xavier Woods, he's fantastic. I love Xavier Woods. I really do. I love his YouTube, up, down, down. But he's probably not the one you want in the tag team if you have a choice of the other two. I think anyone would agree with me there.
Yeah. As in terms of the SmackDown wrestlers, the real-life couples, Jimmy Uso and Naomi, as well as Rusev and Lana, have been trying to get themselves in a team, and most of the fans agree.
Surely Rusev doesn't want Lana.
But yeah, even if they weren't pushing it, I think a lot of the WWE fans were pushing it just for shipping potential. Unfortunately, because the fans are also shipping, they're also trying to push for Nia Jax and Enzo Amore to be a team, to which I can only say, please God, no. But also, Charlotte actually posted an amusing tweet which said that she would like to team up with Bobby Roode so they can both come out with robes and, in brackets, also get back some of the robes he stole from me. But
that's a good one.
So yeah, I think that would actually be a pretty good team up. Actually, you know what? Because I kind of like the two of them, and I'm not sure how you would pair them up otherwise, I would actually like to see Becky Lynch and Shinsuke Nakamura together.
That would be an interesting team. Could both apply arm bars at the same time, I imagine.
Just one on each arm?
Yeah, actually, sorry, that's banned unless under Queensberry rules. I think you need to ask William Regal for that. You know what? I remember seeing on a match not too long ago, I think it was in NXT, two people applying submission moves. I think it was Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. And I imagine NXT goes under Queensberry rules then, because William Regal is the general manager. But yeah, you're not supposed to be able to do two submissions at the same time.
Well, here's the other interesting thing. I should also mention, I mentioned the social media interaction, and this is also the reason why I didn't comment on whether they would have to tag in the women or tag out the men each time. Because another thing they're putting up for fan votes is match stipulations for every single tag team match.
The fans, the WWE fans, are just going to say table match to every single one.
Yeah, that is the downside.
That's what happens. Anytime there's weapons, they're going to chant for tables. Every single time.
Yeah, it's probably going to be, let's see, what have we got here? Table match, Hell in a Cell, Hell in a Cell, ladder match.
From experience, I remember a long time ago they had a Vote Your Stipulation match on one of them shows. And I think it came to something like this. It was, do you want a street fight, a no-holds-barred match, or a falls count anywhere? You decide! It's like, wow, they're all the same frickin' match. So I imagine it's going to be something along those lines.
Yeah, probably.
And that's no joke, by the way. That did happen. I can't believe people wasted their money texting in to vote.
I can fully believe it. I think it's definitely fun trying to mix and match these. Like, I'm not sure who I would put Goldust with. Maybe, I don't know if Alexa Bliss would really fit.
I would put Goldust with Alicia Fox. They're both crazy.
Yeah, that would definitely work. But then with both stuff like, yeah, I've Braun Strowman, everyone wants it. Braun Strowman's that one guy everyone wants to have as a partner. I mean, whether he would work with any of them, that's another thing.
He's the coolest kid in school. Everyone wants to be on his team.
I mean, I would personally love it for one of the other unstoppable monsters like Asuka or Nia Jax to work with him, but it's something like, I can just imagine Alexa Bliss having him and then just hide behind him every time.
Yeah, the only way Braun Strowman's team is going to get eliminated is if the other side doesn't hold up. It's a shame where it's being broadcast, because a lot of people aren't going to see it because of where it is.
Yeah, that's the one downside of all this, and like a lot of people said, it is probably going to be rushed. Yeah, like you said, I do like the concept, and though I have to stress this again just because of the awkward statement I made earlier, but I am in favour of any form of progress, and if we do get the mixed matches and actually do have intergender matches along with the tag teams, which really shouldn't be a big thing at this point.
There's no reason why we shouldn't. This is on Facebook, it's not on a PG television. I don't think it even should be an issue on PG television, because it's not real.
Yeah,
and
it's not real, and as we stressed many times, whilst domestic violence is a serious thing, it's a million miles away from competitive sports.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. What, are you telling me if I see a man hit a woman on TV, I'm instantly going to go outside and punch the nearest woman I see? Well, I guess maybe if it's Lana.
Oh, God.
Getting away from that, though.
Yes, very, very quickly. I mean,
Lana
honestly...
Lana will probably kill me, alright? And then even if I somehow escape Lana, I would run into Rusev.
Yes. I mean, honestly, the only time I could see it being an issue is if it was like a backstage attack, but that's honestly about it. In terms of actually going on in the ring, yeah, there really shouldn't be an issue with this, honestly.
You know what was really cool? Recently, they had a video game competition with some WWE superstars in that was live streamed, and that was really cool to watch that. They had a bunch of WWE competitors, and then they brought in some video game competitors as well for a tournament, and Cesaro destroyed a beach ball on it.
Nice.
Funny. So that was a really cool tournament to have. So these things kind of do work out when they reach out to other areas.
Yeah. You've also mentioned up, down, down, and there was also, like, Kofi Kingston also occasionally hosts some video game competitions between the WWE superstars. There was even one of Rocket League, which actually was pretty awesome because it ended up with one of my favourite teams of Becky Lynch and Neville when he was still on.
That's interesting, actually. I think Neville recently was talking about going back to SmackDown, but they've stalled on talks with that.
Yeah.
With this mixed match challenge, the thing that concerns me is since they don't know the teams yet, that seems bad for the competitors to practice and work out their matches. How are you going to work out your match if you don't know who you're facing or who you're with?
Yeah, I don't know what the deadline for the vote is. Like, as we said, the tournament starts on January 16th, so hopefully it will be closed soon so they can make the official announcement. But yeah, I hope they do give the competitors enough time to actually plan a decent match and don't just rush it, because that would be the one thing that would kill this.
Well, another thing is, this is another match on an already crowded schedule. I remember the Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro saying they defended their tag titles every day on tour and then came back to finish it up with Raw, so they get no time off. This is another match on that schedule.
I mean, it also doesn't help with communication that some wires are being crossed. I mean, on WWE.com, they officially announced which stars were going to be involved, with Kurt Angle announcing who was going to be on Raw and Daniel Bryan announcing who was going to be representing SmackDown. But Kurt Angle threw in some extra stars, which have been ignored in pretty much every other voting competition, which is would make sense because not only would it mean that Raw had more sides than SmackDown, which would be a bit confusing, it also, he included Elias and Jason Jordan, who it's fair to say aren't the most popular people right now amongst fans.
I wonder if he went out on his own there and just wanted to name people.
I mean, that's possible. It could also be that he might have... It also could be that he botched the explanation. It was originally meant to be a vote between Samoa Joe, Jason Jordan, and Elias. obviously, if that's the case, then Samoa Joe clearly won.
Yeah, it could have been the point that they voted down to the number they're on now.
Yeah, that would probably make more sense. But yeah, at the time of recording, the teams haven't officially been announced yet. But yeah, I'm with you. I really hope they announce it quickly so that they can actually plan for this and put on a good show. Because, as I've said, I'm all for progress, and this is definitely a positive step in the right direction. If we prove that we can have intergender tag titles and the women can put on a good show against the men.
No, I would settle for a women's tag title. There's a men's tag title. I think if you want to have more women's matches on the main show, then this is something for them to compete for.
Yeah, well, apparently this was the whole mixed idea was a last-minute change. As initially it was going to be a women's tag team match, but then they decided to try and get some male star power in there as well, which it would be nice if we had the tag team titles because, well, they're not going after the main women's title on Raw. They might as well have them do something.
Yeah, it gives something for those factions to strive for. And you saying that is quite disappointing because that means they didn't believe in the star power of the women wrestlers. And they definitely have enough of them.
Yeah, that is the downside. Although, I guess it depends on which way you look at it. Because in terms of getting more women's matches, yeah, it would have been nicer if they had had a bit more faith, especially after they earned some goodwill with the Mae Young Classic. But if you want to have the women get more actively involved, I think proving that intergender matches can work as a thing, and you can get more women involved with some of the bigger rivals getting themselves over by taking on the likes of Samoa Joe, or just even if it's just like a verbal match with them, I think would be a good step as well. But I guess it depends on which way they go about it. I mean, part of me is wondering whether we need a completely separate division for women, but that's just me.
That is true, but that's been the way in WWE for so long,
I suppose so.
It is in real sports, and I know there's some sports that I really don't believe that women shouldn't be excluded from, and there comes to sports like where women aren't excluded, but they just don't seem to show up, like snooker. Why do you never see women in snooker?
Yeah, that's not really something that muscle mass is required. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of skill involved, not saying that, but yeah.
And I often find myself that I enjoy watching women's football a lot more because in the major leagues of football, you get the sense that they're not trying as hard because they know they're getting paid the big bucks whether they win or lose. And every time they get tackled, they're going to fall on the floor and go for a foul.
Yeah.
When you're watching let's say the minor leagues and the women's football, they try a lot harder because they're hungry and they want to win.
Indeed.
And that's what they care about.
Indeed, yeah, that's why I've enjoyed I should clarify for American audiences, we're talking about soccer, not football.
It's called football!
Yeah, I mean, I still prefer football because it's a game where you kick the ball with your feet. That makes more sense, but yeah. Getting back to the point, I definitely do enjoy the international women's matches a lot more, at least following the English women's scene, because they actually have enough skill and ambition to actually make it to the final rounds, as opposed to it being a miracle when we get to the second round. But that's a whole tangent for completely elsewhere.
Yes, it's just good to see them doing something in this instance. I do think it is a bit of a shame they couldn't make it a women's tag tournament, that they felt that wouldn't be marketable, which is where I feel like they were going with adding the male superstars. But we shall see. Time shall tell.
I guess also, in fairness, I'm trying to think, is there enough women for the having to be well, actually, no, that wouldn't make any sense either. I was thinking maybe there isn't enough women to form the whole teams, but then part of me realises that it's a really odd bracket to have 12 teams in a tournament anyway.
Well, I think they definitely have enough women, especially if they use some from NXT.
That is good, true, yes.
Which is what they may be doing when they go to do this potential Royal Rumble. I mean, let's remember they don't necessarily need to have 30 people in a Royal Rumble. They've had Royal Rumbles with more than 30 in the past, which I think Alberto Del Rio won the larger Royal Rumble. So, interesting there.
Yeah. So, yeah, it would have been nicer if they, like you said, had more faith, but yeah, for what we're getting right now, I'm happy that it's a step in the right direction, even if it wasn't the best step.
Indeed. We move on to Clash of Champions, where every SmackDown Live title will be defended in this pay-per-view on the WWE Network.
The last one of the year, I recall?
Yes, and what strikes me is this is a slightly underwhelming pay-per-view. There are some interesting stories headed into it, which we will cover, but for the most part, I'm not incredibly excited. I have spoken to you before, Jonin, of my predictions, and I'll bring them forth in this podcast, but we will start by running down the match card from the bottom, working our way up. And on the lower end of the spectrum, we have Zack Ryder versus Mojo Rawley. Yawn.
Yeah, this was another tag team. Did they have a tag team name? I forget.
They were the Hype Bros.
Ah,
Bro,
yes. How could I forget?
Hype, bro. Really glad that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
This is coming off from Zack Ryder winning the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania to just immediately drop it to The Miz. Should have been The Miz's moment if you ask me at Mania, but whatever, he had a good moment at Raw. And then Mojo Rawley winning the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale and doing absolutely nothing since. Mojo's blaming Zack Ryder for dragging him down, which is probably correct. I think Mojo, or as he's often called by Corey Graves, Slimer, there's potential in that superstar, but his kind of get hyped, stay hyped. You're 30, man. You're 30. You're not hyped. We can see it in your eyes. You look tired. So.
Yeah, neither of them. I mean, they're breaking up the tag team again in kind of sort of it's something they've been doing a lot recently, like with Big Cass and Enzo Amore, but it really wasn't done that well here. I mean, it didn't help that the two of them decided to break up after the Bludgeon Brothers basically beat them into the ground.
Yeah, really excited to see the Bludgeon Brothers show up. They have a really cool entrance. And even though Harper and Rowan lost their first names along the way, it's still really cool to see them back with this new persona. Although it's very similar to what they've been doing before, Luke Harper gets to wear actual wrestling gear, or at least closer to actual wrestling gear, where he can compete better. And Eric Rowan is doing something, which is good for him.
But at least they're still establishing an actual personality, like this whole thing where they tag each other in and then punch each other on the way in, which is...
Yeah, I think I like the spectacle of their entrance. It's really freaky and mysterious. They have a match on the card here, actually. It's next up, but I just want to say that with Zack Ryder and Mojo Rawley, no one really wins. I mean, Mojo's going to win, but nobody wins in this match.
Yeah, it's not really a match that's going to propel their careers, because neither of them have... I think you've summed up why Mojo's not going anywhere, and I think he's suffered enough. But Zack Ryder as well has not been getting that much praise. I mean, it doesn't help that I can't remember which WrestleMania it was. It was either this year's or the year after. But when Zack Ryder was brought up as a competitor, Booker T's response was, and I'm quoting, "Zack Ryder?" Yeah,
that's fantastic. Booker T tells it like it is, man.
Yeah, if he doesn't think someone's ready or a good competitor, he'll let you know. And in fact, that was one of the reasons I was going to talk about Jason Jordan and what the hell's going on with him, because they were trying to have him go up against Kane in this underdog match with the other commentators selling it as that Jason Jordan is using his talent, is trying his best, but Booker T was just slagging him off the entire way, like, "Oh, look at him, only an amateur would try something like that. He's not ready."
Oh man, Booker T has some serious hate for Jason Jordan. He could just be masterfully putting him over, which he could be doing. Although I get a kind of JBL to the Ascension feel here, where he's just burying the kid. What I remember in particular is when Jason Jordan was fighting, I think it was Roman Reigns, and he was driving him into the corner with some shoulder barges. And Booker T was saying, "Hey, the kid's doing the same move more than once. He must have run out of ideas." I mean, what? He's winning the match. Booker T is a character, so he's playing that character. He doesn't like the fact that this kid, as he would put it, is pushing his way up the rankings in what he sees as an unfair manner. But that's what you have to do. I've said it before. If you want a match, you go out and you punk out the champion. You don't sit by and wait for your turn, because you'll be sitting by a long, long time. Look at Cesaro. You know, you're going to be waiting on the sidelines forever. Cesaro is probably not the best comparison, because he's doing quite well now, but when that tag title's not around his waist, what do you think's going to happen to someone with that talent? I mean, what about Ty Dillinger? Does that name even ring a bell?
Yeah.
That guy's really talented. When did you last see him on SmackDown? He's waiting for his opportunity. That's what's happening, and it's never going to come.
Yeah, it's kind of sad how it is skewed towards the heels in that way, but
I mean, the same thing was happening to Sami Zayn until recently. Sami Zayn is a fantastic competitor, and he was just not being used. Next up, we have Breezango, the Fashion Files versus the Bludgeon Brothers, 2B, as they were referred to. They were kind of slowly brought up in the Fashion Files, although really never involved in the Fashion Files, and I don't really see how they could have been, because their mannerisms and the way they're presented doesn't work with the kind of tongue-in-cheek Fashion Files, although that's where you got the idea of them. Which is funny, I mentioned the Ascension earlier. The Ascension are only seen now as side characters in the Fashion Files, which is really funny, because that... I spoke about that ruining the Bludgeon Brothers characters. It's ruined any credibility the Ascension have, but at least they're on TV sometimes, so you have that. Breezango, they haven't wrestled in forever, but that's fine. They're still getting stuff done on the Fashion Files. They went for a stage of being quite popular and almost in the run for the tag titles against the Uggos, as they called them, the Usos. Unfortunately, their day was not ish, and they didn't get that, and they've been sort of working their way up ever since. This is not the match for them. They may get some comedy I don't even know if they will get any comedy antics off against the Bludgeon Brothers. I think the Bludgeon Brothers want to be running through Breezango.
Yeah, I mean, they might try a comedy thing and it doesn't work. I mean, to be honest, in the Bludgeon Brothers, like I mentioned earlier, they've had a lot of build-up to them. I mean, even without the BB thing, which, to be honest, could have been building up to something else entirely, but they just decided to rework it.
Exactly. The way their minds work, it may not have been a long-term plan. I think it was, but being as the Bludgeon Brothers were never directly shown in the Fashion Files, I don't think it is.
I mean, to be honest, a lot of it came up, because, to explain, the Fashion Files for a while it's been building that they've been trying to find the clues to their mysterious attackers, the BB, but it seems to be like they're continuously changing their mind about what the solution was going to be. Even with that aside, the Bludgeon Brothers, with their various teaser trailers that were being shown on SmackDown before they even got into the ring, and they've been just continuously... They haven't started any major feuds yet. They've just been continuously going through jobbers after jobbers after jobbers, including one which I really wish I could remember his name, because there was one moment last week at the time of recording when they picked this guy up to do a powerbomb, and he let out the most terrified scream as he was going, "Oh God, no!"
Yeah, that's funny, because Xavier Woods got in trouble for that when he was powerbombed by the Dudleys for a table. You're not supposed to do that kind of thing, because that would be the jobber getting himself over when they're supposed to be, invisible, so to speak. But what was really funny is they had an ex-ECW competitor there, an old-time jobber, show up for that one match, which was quite funny. But yeah, that was cool. I think maybe he was trying to do a Zack Ryder, because Zack Ryder was initially in a squash match, and he was picked up because of how he acted in that match. The same thing with James Ellsworth. He was never supposed to be picked up, but they really liked how he acted. So maybe that guy's just trying to get himself over.
Maybe. But either way, the Bludgeon Brothers completely destroyed him, so it's possible that they're going to do the same to Breezango, because that seems to be the way they're going right now. They're trying to sell the Bludgeon Brothers as this brutal, unstoppable force that I'm not sure who the hell they're going to have to defeat them eventually, but it's probably going to take a lot more than Breezango, I'm sorry to say.
Well, we'll see if the Bludgeon Brothers can smash their way through the Uso Penitentiary, and that's probably where that'll end up. Next up, we have the United States Championship match between Baron Corbin, Bobby Roode, and Dolph Ziggler. And if you're wondering why Dolph Ziggler is involved in the match, I can tell you that is because Dolph Ziggler is going to lose the match. So they're pushing Baron Corbin at the moment, and he's going to be working his way up the card. Bobby Roode is new. Bobby Roode is a star. They don't want him to lose either. None of these people can lose the match, which was probably originally scheduled to be a singles match. You had the late edition of Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler is there to lose the match, guys. That's the only reason he's there. He's going to take the pin.
Yeah, he had no reason for any of this. It was just him suddenly adding last minute going, "Oh, by the way, I don't like either of you guys."
And if you want to know, Dolph Ziggler is probably going to not renew his contract when it comes up anyway. He's been outspoken on social media recently that he's not happy with his place in the company. He understands that you have to have people who act as gatekeepers, who get beaten by the new guys, but he's mentioned that children in the audience tell him you're going to lose when he's on a live show. They know his win-loss record is terrible. They know he's never going to come on top of the new sensation. And he's really not okay with that currently. He's fine with being a gatekeeper, but he doesn't want to lose all the time.
Yeah, he really has not had a good run, especially when they were doing the whole entrance gimmick, which was just embarrassing.
It was. And you think about this is the same guy that was the last Survivor a couple of Survivor Series ago. They're taking him from that point where they could have done anything with him to down here, which is shades of when Cesaro won the Memorial Battle Royale and then got teamed with Paul Heyman and they just didn't know what to do.
It's just kind of sad for multiple reasons, really, because, well, Dolph Ziggler, it's really not doing his career any favours in getting him over. And with Bobby Roode, it just killed his momentum because when he first came on the scene, it was brilliant. He stepped out and there was this glorious, and the entire crowd was singing along. And then, I don't know why they dragged out the whole feud of Dolph Ziggler for so long, because it was obvious where they were going to go. He was making fun of people who used big dramatic entrances to make up for the fact that they weren't good in the ring. Bobby Roode is a man who proved he could do both, and then for some reason they had to have multiple matches against each other because I don't know.
Yeah, every now and then they drag on, I say every now and then, most of the time, they drag on a rivalry past the point where it's become interesting, and that was an example of it. Now it's been inserted into this Baron Corbin US Championship feud. We'll see how it goes, but I predict Dolph Ziggler takes a loss, probably from Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin definitely retains. Corbin definitely retains. As excited as I am to see Bobby Roode in this position, it's not his time yet. They need to do a bit more work on him to really put his character over. He's got that great theme music. It's like Bobby Roode's character turned up to 11. You've got to love it, but he's a bit too new on the main roster.
Yeah, he's got a great theme. He's got a catchphrase that everyone can get involved in, and the audience is just waiting for it. And he's a great performer as well. Problem is, they haven't really done much with him except pin him against Dolph Ziggler. I think you're right. He needs to have sort of one really good feud on his own before he can really go anywhere with that.
It's great to see him in the WWE being used, whereas in Impact Wrestling they'd started dwindling on him. Stone Cold had been saying for years previously that there are a bunch of people, including Bobby Roode and James Storm, that should be in the WWE, and until recently, until the success of AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, they didn't really think much of Impact Wrestling stars. But then maybe in the future we might see a couple of more. We might see Ethan Carter III. We might see Bobby Lashley coming back round, actually, because his contract is going to be up at some point, and he doesn't want to renew. I think he wants to be back. I believe he wants a match with Brock Lesnar. I mean, Bobby Lashley's 5-0 in the Octagon, so which is, undersold. He's got a better record than Brock Lesnar. So we'll see how that goes. And next up we have the Tag Team Championships, the SmackDown Tag Team titles between the Usos, the New Day, and then Rusev and Aiden English. It's Rusev Day! Versus Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin, American Alpha 2.0, which I actually think they should call them that. I don't know why they're not. It just doesn't seem right.
I think they're desperately trying to pretend, it's a completely new team. It's not the American Alpha 2.0, even though, you're right, it's very clear.
They just don't have a team name where they could have a team name. They're both amazing amateur wrestlers prior to becoming professional wrestlers. Yeah, I would go with American Alpha 2.0. It makes it look like they're an upgrade from American Alpha. Really, what's happened here is Chad Gable's stock has dropped because the crowd were really behind Chad Gable with their Kurt Angle-inspired chants, but it just hasn't kept going, really. You'd think at this point there would be more behind him, but for some reason they've decided to run Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin down the heel path. Which I don't really understand, because I can see them as heels. I get that they need a spot for heel tag team. I guess they're not doing anything with the Colognes.
Yeah.
I thought one of the Colognes had left the company recently, but it seems like they're back. They're not doing anything with them.
Yeah.
And you've got
I mean, it also doesn't help that I don't get the heel angle either, especially since the team was originally formed because Jason Jordan was transferred over to Raw because he was initially Chad Gable's partner, but he was transferred to Raw after shock revelation that Kurt Angle has a son and it was Jason Jordan. And so the way they set it up was that Daniel Bryan basically said, it was saying to Chad Gable and said, okay, look, I'm sorry it turned out that Jason Jordan was Kurt Angle's son, but here's Shelton Benjamin. And that was literally the extent of their team up.
Yeah, so when Chad made it to SmackDown, he did get teamed with Shelton Benjamin, and it was really good. Shelton Benjamin's a veteran. We were expecting Shelton Benjamin a little while ago, but an injury kept him out until now. So it's really good to see Shelton Benjamin back. Association with Kurt Angle there, with Shelton Benjamin, of course, from Team Angle. Then we have Rusev and Aiden English, which is a really odd team, but it's an amusing team.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, Rusev is getting over a lot more than Aiden English, who's doing a lot of the singing. It seems to be that Rusev has declared every single day to be Rusev Day, and he is content with listening to Aiden English as long as Aiden English is constantly singing about Rusev Day. So other than that, they don't seem to have much association, except they both like to fight Randy Orton until this point. So now they're a tag team?
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of odd and a very hastily formed team, but the reason I like it is because I do like the fact that Rusev is getting a push apart from just being the foreign heel for Randy Orton or John Cena to beat up. I do like the fact that he is now taking part in tag teams and being able to set himself apart from that because he is a very entertaining performer and always sets up a good match. Granted, I don't think that team is going to win. But
that is true. It was impressive that they managed to earn themselves a spot in the match as it is. Rusev is a very funny person on his online videos. He gets his character across a lot more than he has time to do on the main show. So it's good to see them doing something with them. And Aiden English, you fought with the Vaudevillains falling apart with his tag team partner leaving the company, that Aiden English might be stranded with a lack of direction, but they are doing stuff with him, so that's good. And then you have the Usos and the New Day, who are... It's really between these two, I think, about who's going to win this match, and I'm probably going to go with the Usos.
Yeah, they seem to be hitting them up as the strongest tag team right now. I mean, obviously the New Day is still getting attention just because it's the New Day, but I think you're right. Given everything that's happened in Survivor Series, I don't quite see the Usos losing their titles just yet.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Usos persona right now. I remember being very annoyed with them when they were a face team and thinking that their stick was very old, but I really like what they're doing right now. So I'm very happy to see them in their current incarnation, and I believe that they will retain the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. The New Day will get their hands on the title at some point. I just don't think it will be on this pay-per-view. Having said that, that's me predicting 2 retentions so far, so that might not be the case. They're going to want some titles to change hands.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be any of the others, looking down the card. So I think it could be the tag title. Let's change my prediction there, because with that in mind, I think it's going to go... I would have picked the New Day. So the New Day will be a good team for the Bludgeon Brothers to rival with. But I'm actually going to pick Gable and Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah, I guess if we're going with the logic that someone has to change title, I mean, personally I would love it if it was Baron Corbin, but if I had to check the tag titles, which is probably the most likely, I would say the most likely is the New Day, although I would personally really enjoy it if it was Rusev and Aiden English as just like a complete curveball.
Yeah, as much as I want to see them with the title, we've mentioned it that they're the least likely to get their hands on it. They seem like just a team of convenience.
Yeah.
At the time, just because they wanted another team involved. Good to see Rusev doing something. His career is... I mean, I don't know what's going on with his career. He was a guy that was supposed to be a main eventer, and now he's formed a tag team with Aiden English. I love Aiden English, and I love Rusev, but they're not a tag team. So let's move on from there. We've got an interesting match, and I don't know if how I'm looking at this now is where it's going to be billed on the card, because I thought that this would be the main event, and I think it will be the main event, but on the match card I'm looking at, it's here. So let's go with that. It is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the best friends forever of Shinsuke Nakamura and Randy Orton with not one, but 2 special guest referees of Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon. Here comes the money!
Yeah, this is, well, at the time it's being billed as a potential conclusion, or at least the big turning point for the feud between Kevin Owens plus Sami Zayn now against the McMahons, which has been currently the longest running story on SmackDown, and frankly one of the best. I've given it praises enough times. Mainly because it's actually one that does play to all of their characters, and every step has actually made sense about it dragging, because it initially started off as Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon, with Kevin Owens basically blaming Shane McMahon for literally everything bad that happened to him in the past few months, but taking it to an extreme where he claimed that Shane McMahon should have died in the helicopter crash, which led to Shane McMahon beating him up and to be suspended. He then headbutted Vince McMahon just to rub salt into the wound further, and then came to a Hell in a Cell match between him and Shane McMahon, which, just as Shane McMahon was about to leap off the cage in order to land the final blow, Sami Zayn pulled Kevin Owens out the way, and he then cut a really excellent promo which explained that the reason he stood behind Kevin was that he realized that he was trying to be the decent, honorable guy, but he, in his own words, landed in mediocrity whilst Kevin Owens kept getting title after title after title. And then when he tried to stop Shane McMahon from doing the Hell in a Cell, saying, look, I know Kevin Owens, you don't know what he's capable of, Shane McMahon basically just dismissed him out of hand, implying that he wasn't important.
Yeah, and really that's what it comes down to. If you want to make waves in WWE, you have to just go out there and stir the pot. Really interesting development here with Daniel Bryan becoming the second referee. It's funny because on the last SmackDown before this pay-per-view, which is on tomorrow, for us at least, you guys will be watching it with a bit of a tape delay, so you can tell us how wrong we are when it comes to the same with the Survivor Series predictions. Daniel Bryan came out in support of Shane McMahon to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, despite Shane McMahon booking really crazy matches like having Kevin Owens handcuffed to the ring while Sami Zayn takes on somebody in the ring. And Daniel Bryan contradicted himself immediately by making himself a second referee, which shows that, yes, I think that Shane McMahon will be fair in his right state of mind, and yet I feel like I need to be there to make sure it's a fair match. Because Daniel Bryan says he respects Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for competitors, and they've compared it to Daniel Bryan versus The Authority, which is very accurate, even with their own, as they refer to it, their yep movement. Because they're Canadian, it's yep. And that was pretty interesting. They tried to do an Occupy SmackDown, and it failed, but that led to Daniel Bryan coming out and then answering their fears by making himself the second referee in the match. You had a match later on where Daniel Bryan was on commentary over the Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn match. This was really cool because Byron Saxton was amazing on commentary. He kind of switched roles from his normal face commentary to being a bit more of a heel. He was just going on Daniel Bryan completely. The argument between Daniel Bryan and Byron Saxton was amazing. I read on an article prior that it made it unwatchable, but I disagree. It was amazing. Where Byron Saxton was the complete WWE figure, where he was saying that they can go back to the Indies where it doesn't matter what they do. And then he said to Daniel Bryan something along the lines of anything that's done outside of WWE doesn't matter.
Yeah,
because outside of WWE.
Yeah, because I think at one point Byron Saxton was sort of arguing that because Daniel Bryan was trying to explain his position on why he's been a bit lenient towards Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, because his general position is, I don't agree with their actions, but I still respect their talent, and I don't think it's worth firing them or doing the ridiculous punishments Shane McMahon continuously adds to every single match. And Byron Saxton was basically acting like Daniel Bryan was best friends with them. And then Daniel Bryan basically said something along the lines of, I still don't like the guy. Kevin Owens tried to gouge out my eyes. At which point Byron Saxton claimed, oh, it's in the Indies, it doesn't count. And that led to Daniel Bryan saying something about the likes of, you don't know anything about this business. Don't tell me what does and doesn't count.
It's really great because Byron was completely on the side of Shane McMahon is my boss, so I can cope any decision he makes. Despite whether it's right or wrong. Really, really funny exchange, a really interesting exchange. I wonder if this is going to lead towards Byron making a move to a heel commentator, because I've always thought when I went back and watched him as a commentator in NXT, he was much better as a heel commentator. than a face. I was hoping that would be a similar situation with David Otunga, where David Otunga could transition into a heel. But Byron is a very good commentator all round, and it's nice to see him get more involved, because with a three-man commentary team, you always have someone that doesn't put out the same amount as the rest of them, because they're just in the background most of the time. You don't need three people on commentary. So it's good to see Byron do a bit more there.
Yeah. That actually brings up another point, because the speculation online has been going over, oh, is this going to lead to Daniel Bryan turning heel? But the thing is, this is what I'm kind of interesting. No one's really acting out of character. I mean, yeah, he's going against the orders of Shane McMahon and backing up Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, so you could say that Daniel Bryan's going heel. But the thing is, it's not really heel-ish, because he's not doing it to be a dick. He's doing it because Shane McMahon is, frankly, the one doing the most heelish things, because he's the one that's... I mean, he initially just wanted to fire them straight up on the spot for interfering with Survivor Series, but Daniel Bryan gave them the chance to have a lumberjack match. Shane McMahon was framing it that, I like what you did there. Yes, they can have the entire roster beat the ever-loving crap out of them, and then, when they're beaten and broken, you can step into the ring and fire them. But Daniel Bryan didn't do that.
So I think one thing that they could potentially be setting up for is that Daniel Bryan is able to wrestle again now. He has been cleared, but WWE, I think they're talking about giving him a limited schedule, maybe pay-per-views. Maybe they're setting up for a Shane McMahon-Daniel Bryan rivalry for potentially SummerSlam down the line.
Yeah.
But Daniel Bryan is at the point where he will leave WWE if he is not allowed to wrestle. When his contract is expired, he will leave. So they may be setting up a point where Shane McMahon can fire him. And my initial prediction was, and I spoke to you about this prior to the podcast, was that Daniel Bryan would turn heel in support of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. But since then, I have changed my mind. I do believe that Daniel Bryan will just do what he does, call it down the middle, and inadvertently get the ire of Shane McMahon by, counting the match, keeping Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn employed. Because really, there's no way Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are going to be fired.
Yeah.
Unless they do a Survivor Series type thing where they're fired and then 2 or 3 weeks later they're back. Where in Survivor Series, everyone on Team Cena except Cena was fired, and then Cena eventually relented and brought the authority back by just saying, I bring the authority back, and like some sort of macabre summoning, they immediately came out. They weren't supposed to be in the building, but I unleashed the authority, and they were back on the night. But anyway, I digress. Maybe there'll be something like that, but I don't think they'll have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn get fired.
Yeah, I mean, it's either that or... I've heard some rumours that some WWE stars are going to go back into NXT, and that could be them, but I'm already doubtful of the rumour, but...
That's insane. If they're going to bring anyone into NXT, it will probably be Ty Dillinger, Apollo Crews, people who they haven't really used them to their maximum potential, and they're extremely talented, but they're not seeing any airtime. Those are the kind of people I could see going back into NXT, not big stars like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
Yeah, I mean, Sami Zayn has been badly used, but he's still a pretty big draw with the crowd.
Yeah, I foresee Daniel Bryan calling it down the line, but potentially not seeing some shenanigans by Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, like them holding the tights, him having a disagreement with Shane McMahon, maybe Shane McMahon gets laid out by an actual attack by Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn that Daniel Bryan doesn't see, and Daniel Bryan, makes the call, and that's what causes Shane McMahon to slowly turn heel, because I think of it that Daniel Bryan could turn heel, but the audience are never going to accept him as a heel.
Oh, hell no.
Like when he was part of the Wyatt family, they would rebel against it. And they would just cheer whatever he did anyway. Like when he was facing Roman Reigns and he was trying to be a bit heel in his way that he treated the Usos by kicking them when they were down and things like that. The crowd don't care. They'll cheer him regardless. He's Daniel Bryan. So the best bet is to slowly turn Shane McMahon heel, but then that leaves in a very awkward situation where does that somehow make Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn face? I don't think so. I think they stay heel. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I mean, it's going to work out a lot better than best buddies Shinsuke Nakamura and Randy Orton. Randy Orton, who do you choose as your partner? Well, I guess Shinsuke Nakamura came out and he helped me. Never mind the fact that I can't actually communicate with Shinsuke Nakamura because I don't speak Japanese.
Yeah, that's the one downside of this whole thing, which is that it's been great for everyone involved, apart from Randy Orton and Shinsuke Nakamura, who are basically being treated like hired thugs. Like, Randy Orton does have some beef with them, but that's about it.
Yeah, they liken the fact that Randy Orton has often been a hitman for the Authority down the line. But Shinsuke Nakamura seems really weird here. It seems like they just have him in because they haven't got anything for him to do. I mean, a couple of weeks ago he was a lumberjack in the lumberjack match. You know, Shinsuke Nakamura is just standing as one of the guys in the crowd. It really doesn't feel like they have any plans for him. At least maybe he'll make his way up into the top card again, but he did lose to Jinder Mahal a while back. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing with him. Maybe they're just, waiting for the right time. But if you wait too long, he's going to slide down the card and his credibility is going to suffer.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully if the other match that's on the card is finished, then maybe he can try and go after AJ Styles, which is what people want him to do, so, given his history on New Japan.
Let's see if there can be some internal Bullet Club battling there, because Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles at one point or another were both leaders of the New Japan faction. Anything else to say on that match before we move on?
Yeah, it's one of those matches where I kind of predict that Daniel Bryan's going to interfere somehow. I don't know whether it would make him heel or not, because the thing is, this is actually a lot more subtle and complex than a lot of wrestling feuds, basically, because there's no way that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn would become face, because while Shane McMahon is taking an attitude that could be a heel, that he's been incredibly vindictive to these two, the fact is, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn have basically been absolute gits, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny that this is the match I'm most excited for, and it's because of the referees.
Well, it's mainly because this is the one feud that's actually been built up and actually done well. As in, it's the one where they've been making a continuous story that's been slowly built up but made sense and hasn't dragged in any way.
Yeah, a lot of these other matches, like the tag match and the women's title match, have just had people added last minute.
Yeah, I'm excited for this match because I'm hoping it will be a new development in this storyline. I mean, admittedly, I would prefer it if this was kind of the end, so that at the very least we can scale the feud down a bit so that Shinsuke Nakamura and Randy Orton can do their own things instead of being hired thugs. I mean, I don't know whether it will lead to Daniel Bryan wrestling again, because I would really like to, but it's that whole kind of thing where he says can wrestle, the doctors aren't 100% sure, and they're gonna remain 100% sure, because if Daniel Bryan is cleared and the worst happens, both WWE and the doctor himself are not gonna look good.
Well, I will say Daniel Bryan has been cleared. It's just if he gets another concussion, that's really bad. So after that we have, and this is not necessarily the match card order, this is just the match card I'm looking at on Bleacher Report, so this could change, because I would have seen the Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura, Randy Orton match as the main event, but maybe they'll have the title as the main event. We have, next up, Charlotte Flair versus Natalya. This is a lumberjack match with the rest of the SmackDown Women's division on the outside looking in, also for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Really don't know what to make about this match, except Charlotte Flair's probably going to win.
Yes, Charlotte Flair's probably going to win. There's just so much about this match, I've no idea what's going on. I don't know why Natalya's been given the title shot over literally everyone else in the roster, because, yeah, she's a former champion, I get it, but why she needs to sudden push this early, I don't know. I don't know why everyone's been forced into a lumberjack match. I don't know what, if anything, the Riot Squad can do when they're out there, or what anyone else can do.
Well, I like to see the continuation of the Hearts versus the Flairs rivalry, even with all of this mess that's going on outside of it, because we know that the Riot Squad are going to attack people in this match. They wouldn't be there, they weren't going to get involved and attack people. My fear is that the match will be cut short because of outside interference, which really sucks. That happens a lot on SmackDown Live, where they will have a women's match set up and then it will end before it begins. And they also do a lot of stuff in women's matches that I don't agree with, like I think it was one of the Absolution tag matches. One of the finishing moves was just Paige coming in when she wasn't tagged and doing a kick, and that was the pin. Like, a wrestler looks really bad if they're not beaten by a finishing move.
Yeah.
It should never be like a schoolboy roll-up, which I see happen a lot more as well, where that's just a quick win because of a distraction. It should always be a finishing move, or make someone look bad. In this case, the Lumberjacks are definitely going to go wild and attack each other. It will detract from the main match.
I mean, the only way it could change is if Natalya somehow managed to coerce the Riot Squad to her side. I mean, it'd be cool if that happened. I don't think it will, though. I think, if anything, it's probably going to be Charlotte Flair retains the title, but there's probably going to be some chaos that happens outside, probably just because they've set it up. Nadina and Sarah Logan are probably going to get into a punch-up, and the whole Lumberjacks will just descend into chaos.
It's going to be a mess, which is a shame because Charlotte Flair and Natalya are great in-ring competitors, but I feel like they'll be overshadowed by the Lumberjacks, and they could have had 2 matches.
And I suppose we deal with the world title match between AJ Styles and Jinder Mahal again.
AJ wins.
Yeah. Until recently, I might have been umming and ahhing about, Jinder's probably going to win because they're pushing to India, but after Triple H beat Jinder Mahal in his own freaking turf, and the sales numbers have gone down, I think this might be the, last hurrah is a bit of an exaggeration, the last gasp of Jinder Mahal's push at this point.
Yeah, I keep saying that if you told me a couple of years ago that AJ Styles will be here, I would have been astounded by how WWE is treating him so well. They don't normally have that kind of opinion of outside talent from other organizations. Just look at anyone from WCW they brought in. They would bury them down and make sure that one of their superstars, most of the time Triple H, run them down. It's really good to see AJ Styles in this position. I don't think Jinder Mahal is going to win. Jinder Mahal has the outside interference of the Singh brothers. Shame to see the Bollywood boys in such a low position in the WWE, but I feel like the Singh brothers could go back to NXT and then work their way up. I know that the WWE is very happy with how they're doing right now, which is good, but when they can't win in essentially a handicap match against AJ Styles, it makes them look bad.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of hoping that, I initially was hoping that they were going to go with an angle where there was 1 week where Jinder Mahal, after losing to AJ Styles, turned on the Singh brothers and lost them both as punishment. And then the week afterwards, they came out and said, okay, we're turning on Jinder Mahal. It was a good run, but we hated working with the guy. We were kissing his feet. But then AJ Styles went, that's all nice and all, but I have photographic evidence that you are best friends with Jinder. And then just beats them both up in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, because they were with him at India where he lost to Triple H. What was funny, though, is the Singh brothers got quite a good crowd reaction when they turned on Jinder, which suggests that Jinder is still working well as a heel, so he's not going to drop completely down the cart. And it suggests that the crowd are actually ever so slightly invested in the Singh brothers, so they could make their way to a tag team. Which is baffling why they're not involved in the tag division as it is, when you have not real tag teams like Rusev and Aiden English.
Yeah, it's mainly the fact that, Jinder Mahal definitely has the potential to be a heel. The reason why I think I was so baffled and against him is just because he was being pushed to World Championship status for a marketing push, and they were focusing his entire character on being Indian. But if he does lose this and sort of go back to a sort of mid-card heel position, I wouldn't mind so much, actually.
Yeah, I think he may stay along top tier, especially as they are still trying to make their push into India. It's safe to say that AJ Styles is the flag bearer at this point, especially when they're moving in towards WrestleMania season. That's where they're really going to push their best foot forward. Yeah. And for that point, they're going to want AJ Styles waving the SmackDown banner.
Yeah, he's really popular right now, especially after the Brock Lesnar match. It would be insane if they had Jinder Mahal get his title back now.
With that said, it wouldn't be out of the question for Jinder to win as a shock and then just give it back to AJ on a SmackDown. But if you do that, I think it makes AJ look less strong. I think he needs to retain a number of wins going forward.
And you really wouldn't get a good reaction out of the crowd at all.
No, but they have ended pay-per-views with bafflingly strange moments before, like Survivor Series.
Good point. Not to mention the Punjabi match.
Yeah, the Punjabi prison match had a very odd ending, but it was really cool to see the great Khali.
Yeah, for a few seconds, and then just never have him explained until now. I mean, it wasn't until this week when AJ mentioned, he even got the great Khali from India. It's like, okay, that's for establishing where he is.
Yeah, I think Khali is involved in a wrestling school over there, so...
Yeah, I know that obviously in real life he's in a wrestling school in India. I was just saying it was only until, several months after the event that they actually gave an in-ring reason that, so he just called him up from India, rather than just what happened the weeks after that initial Battleground pay-per-view where they just never acknowledged that the great Khali slammed Randy Orton and just walked out the building.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I'm seeing that Great Khali was added to the WWE roster page after that match, but was quickly removed, which indicated it was a one-time appearance. But that's according to Wikipedia, so don't trust anything you read on there.
Yeah. But, yeah, I guess that's all of our predictions, because, yeah, I'd be very surprised if Jinder won again, but I think with the momentum AJ Styles has, he's going to win this.
Yep, I will be watching it tomorrow to find out exactly how incorrect I have been. Having said that, I will be probably editing my game room tour during it because it's a really long show. But we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. We'll see how right or wrong we were. Let's see if we were anywhere close to how baffled we were with Survivor Series for Clash of Champions.
Indeed. We'll probably go into our thoughts and opinions on what actually happened in our next show, which will be next year, given the fact that there's so much stuff going on, what with Christmas and the fact that I'm actually going away for New Year and probably won't be back until early January, so...
Yep, and with that, I've been MVL, this was the Jonin Monkey, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Flip the Mic podcast.
See you around.